well. Let's see, I think I found yesterday that if I kill this one as I'm talking to you guys, you can see my face a little bit better. So we'll give that a shot. Actually, no, it's my dark shirt that's killing me here. But I had to wear my Reaper University shirt, so I'm not sure what we're gonna do there. So, okay, so for everyone who may not have met me yet, my name is Ian Markon. On the internet, in the painting circles, I often go by my painting handle, Kuro Clean Brush. So if you see me on Facebook or anything like that, you'll probably find me under the Kuro Clean Brush logo. And I've been painting miniatures, I think, since 2003, 2004. I was in my early teens at that point, so I don't remember exactly when I started. But it's been about 17 years now. And my first ReaperCon was in 2012, and that's when I first kind of started to learn how to do more than just base coat and you know, maybe slap a wash on there and maybe edge highlight. So I consider that like the start of my hardcore painting career, was my my first ReaperCon there. And then since then, I taught my first class in 2015. This one has been going on for a couple, 2-3 years, and has been a favorite of folks. So hopefully it will be a favorite for all of you as well here. And it's designed to give us enough time to really digest not just how to slap paints on a miniature to make it look like it's non-metallic metal, but why we slap those given paints on the miniature to make the non-metallic metal appearance. So we'll talk a little bit of theory, and then we'll do a lot of execution over all these things. As with most of my classes, we're going to start out a little slow just so that we're on the same page. We've got all of our, we're using the same definitions. We're understanding why we're picking the paints we're picking and everything. But if you'll bear with me, we'll go ahead and get started here. So, so first things first, I'm going to start switching over to my my painting camera here so that you guys can see the miniature we're working on. We'll be using Valeroth, Hellborn Paladin, because quite simply put, this guy is, he's covered in metal. We've got lots of different metal options and lots of different metal geometries. I find that his sword is wonderful for us because it's got so many different metal facets that we get more non-metallic metal practice for a single sword than we would get if we just had a normal diamond cross-section blade. So yeah, so let's see here. When we want to go ahead and get started, hopefully you can see I've taken my miniature and I've just washed them with soap and water, no primer, nothing special. There is one last little thing I am going to do before I begin though, and that is, if you look carefully at my miniature, you can see there's a little fold of flashing there from the casting process. So I'm going to whip out an X-Acto knife real quick, and I'm just going to trim that. I don't have to be too particular here, but and I've never tried to use an X-Acto knife on the camera before, but I'm just going to take off some of that excess so that we have a nice consistent geometry to the top of our blade. And I think I revealed as I did that there's some more flashing on this blade. So there you go. Just doesn't have to be perfect. Just clean off the majority of things there. Cool. Now we have a nice well-rounded tip to the start of our blade. So cool. All right. Now we can put our X-Acto knives away before we accidentally, you know, before I let mine roll off the table and stab me or something like that. It is safely put away. And now let's go ahead and you'll see that hopefully if you haven't already mounted your miniature on a painting handle, this is a good time to do it. If you're not familiar with the concept of a painting handle, basically it's just anything that you can hold nice and ergonomically and mount your miniature to the top of while you work. I just use blue tack to stick my miniatures to the top of little plastic bathroom cups. This is my super cheapo, you know, like 10-cent solution to things. And it, you know, it's extremely strong. You can't really see it here, but I'll take metal miniatures all day long and just mount them and hang them upside down. And if I have pins through their feet, I can just drill holes in the top of the cup and put the pins in their feet all the way down through the cup. But that aside, let's go ahead and talk about our paints that we're going to use here. So when I listed the paints for the class. I gave a whole bunch of different colors, but you don't have to have all of these colors to get the job done. And we'll talk about kind of what you're shooting for if you need to make substitutes. The core colors that I want us to have are, this is going to be the mid-tone of my steel color. And what I did is I just have used this one a bunch and I really like it. Hopefully you can see with decent color fidelity. Shadowed stone is a slightly darker than middle gray, and it has a little bit of warm hints to it. If you have cold hints to your gray, doesn't matter. Just take a gray that is slightly darker than middle gray and you should be good to go. If it's like super close to black, you're going to run into some trouble. So if it's a choice between like super close to black gray or middle gray, just pick middle gray. Let's see. Derek says, am I the only one not getting audio? I hope it's just you. I think others are hearing me. Does anybody else have input on that? Michael, do we have time to paint over the black if you, okay, thanks for the audio confirmation there, everyone. Michael asked, if you primed black, do you have time to paint over the black? You might, but don't worry, just do a couple more coats of the base coat as we're working with there. Thank you. All right, thanks for the confirmation, everyone. So that's gonna be our middle here on our steel. So I'm gonna set it there and hope it doesn't roll away on me. Now, we're gonna pick our middle for our gold. And I'm actually probably going to use a little bit of a mix of two colors to make our middle for our gold. You can create vastly different looks for your gold based on whether they're more brown or more yellow. And we're just going to do like that famous meme, and why not both, you know? And we're going to do a little bit of each of these colors. If you notice, I've got some goofy, I've had these paints since back in the MSP HD days. But this paint, as I understand, has been re-released in the Bones HD line. So don't worry if your numbers are different. It should be the same color. And what we're going to want, if you don't have these two colors, is just you want like a yellow-brown and a brown-yellow, if that makes sense. And if you can only get one of them, then just probably just a more yellow-brown is going to give you the most bang for your buck there. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about how we build around that. If you've taken any of my classes before, you know that when I start my miniature, I almost always pick a deepest shadow color and a highlight color. And by keeping those two colors the same across everything I paint, it makes everything look like it's in the same light source. So for today, I think I had in my mind that I was going to use blue liner, but when I look back at what I actually asked for in the class, I said I was going to use brown liner. So I'm going to use brown liner because that's what I said I would use in the class notes. But if you have blue liner, if you have a really dark blue, you have a really dark brown, an almost black blue or brown, that's going to work well. And we're going to use it to shade both the steel and the gold. And then we're going to want our off-white highlight color. And I just love linen white. I go through this in many, many bottles. It's a slightly yellow off-white, and it just adds a warm pop to a lot of your highlight colors. Michael Campbell asked, blue liner for gold too? Yep, truth be told, a lot of people think that there's a lot of magic to the color selection that you make in non-metallic metals, and that's only partially true. As long as you have a really dark color going to a really light color through either gray or brown yellow, you're going to sell the effect pretty well. If you have, Christina, if you have both, which should you use? I'm going to be painting with brown. So you can go ahead and follow me with the brown. But yeah, there's not really a wrong answer to that one. Peter, I'm going to run out of linen white by Monday. No kidding. I know how it goes. Awesome. Thanks, Gregory. Yeah, Anne has confirmed that the Bones re-releases are the same as the original HD paints. That is excellent. Yeah, because there's some of those HD paints that I do not want to lose. So gold and yellow amongst them, and some others too. So, okay, now we've got our highlight, right? Past that, we're going to use some other colors to help us make a transition between things. I'm going to use the ashen blue because it's kind of a sky color. It's kind of a cold sky color to transition between our shadowed stone and our linen white. I'm going to use a pale saffron. This is just it's a slightly desaturated but much brighter yellow that I'm going to use to bridge the gap between my yellow brown and my linen white. And then I actually, if you guys will permit me, I'm going to call one audible. I didn't ask for this paint when I was writing my class notes, but hopefully if you can dig through your paint collections and find just like a dark green that's a little darker than your gray, I think we're actually going to use that to help work back through from our shadowed stone to our brown liner. If you don't have that dark green, then we'll talk about how to, remind me and I'll talk about how to avoid using this. This is just going to add a little bit of extra color to our non-metallic metal and make it look a little more exciting. Joshua Lemons asks, would green liner work? Yep, any liner you have is going to work very well here. Oh no, if your brown liner is almost empty, I feel your pain. I buy it, like I have backups so that when my liners start to get empty, I'm already working on the next bottle. If your dark green is kind of saturated, forest green, that's not going to be the end of the world there. So that would work just fine. A ton of Christmas wreath, I do too. Yep. Cool, cool, cool. Black green is so dark there, Rob, that it would probably almost replace the brown liner. But, you know, actually it'll look really nice. So if you are going to use black green, just replace both of these colors. Dark purple would work instead of dark green. Seriously, guys, when I say that there is no magic color combination, you can use any dark color that you want, and it will look quite well, or it will look quite good on this. And then the last thing you need is just a pure white. I'm using pure white, but it could be dragon white, it could be white, it could be, you know, it could be, it doesn't matter, but we just don't want to see any hints of blue or yellow or any off-white. You want this to be your whitest white, all right? And then we should be good to go. In that forest green, viper green, pine green, I think forest green is the darker one. Peacock green will work just fine. Yeah. Can you ask why a liner rather than pure black for the darkest shadow? That's a very good question. So Gregory, the reason that I don't use pure black for my darkest shadows is that pure black is, from a colors perspective, slightly boring. It is extremely dark, but by not adding any color to those shadows, it can kind of make the shadow look boring. Whereas if you have like some cold colors in your shadow, it can actually, because cold colors recede, you can actually make the shadow look darker than if you didn't have, you can make the shadow look darker than if you actually use just black. It's kind of weird, but it will work out pretty well. Awesome. What's closest to ashen blue, Andy asked? That's a good question. If you don't have ashen blue, you can actually get away with just about any blue that's lighter than your middle gray tone. Basically, this is just going to add some interest to our sky here. So, John, I don't have heather blue that I can think of off the top of my head, so I can't think of that's color. But yeah, but apparently a bunch of people are saying that's close, so I would go with it. So cool. Once again, this is not super precise, but the way you can check to see if your colors are going to work well for you is let's just pay attention to the this the gray for a second. Flip all these guys upside down and look from side to side, and you want to see that you're progressively getting lighter as you move on. If this color is lighter than this color, or this color is lighter than this color, then it's going to be a little, you can still do it, but it's going to be a challenge. So generally you want to see from black to white. So if you took a grayscale picture of these, you would see darker, progressively lighter, progressively lighter, progressively lighter, and then your lightest tone. So I do that from time to time as I just flip my paint bottles upside down with the colors I'm going to use and make sure that my colors are getting progressively lighter from one side of the things to the other. Yeah, cloudy gray and dragon blue would work amazing there, Amy, if you want a good there. Yeah, all kinds of things there. So if you have a saturated yellow, it will just, instead of a desaturated yellow, it will just make your metal look a little more vibrant. So not the end of the day. So, all right, I'm gonna. I would love to answer every specific paint question you guys got, but I don't want to bog us down here. So I'm gonna keep moving. But suffice it to say, the trick with this technique is not exactly which colors you use, but it's how you apply them to your miniature. So if it seems like it might work, go with it and give it a try. So, okay, your green should not be darker than your liner, ideally. Yes, that is one last good question that we'll cover there. So, okay, so with that in mind, what are we going to try to produce here at the end of the day? Well, what we're going to try to produce is, when I've taught this class the past couple of years, I've got a few examples from it. Now, these were just quick examples that were whipped up in the class, but we're going to try to get like some nice color transitions of steel. And then we're going to try to get some nice color transitions on some gold. Forgive the gold is worse for wear and tear because I had to throw this in my package and fly home from ReaperCon. So some of that has gotten worn off. To give you an example of a miniature that, a couple of miniatures that I've done in the past or I'm working on currently for what we're doing. This guy with his spearhead, this is going to be pretty close to the color combinations we're using today. You can hopefully see that I've got a little bit of blue in it indicating the sky, and we're good to go. He's fairly similar to the gold color combination I'm using. So that would be kind of what we're working on. This guy that I'm working on currently, and I just didn't have time to finish before the convention, he is steel, but he's using steel with blue on the highlights. He actually uses something a little lighter than ashen blue, and then he actually uses purple as the shadow for his silver. And you end up with that hopefully nice metallic sheen. So it really doesn't, I'm going purple to blue on this one. You could use all kinds of different colors. Donna, can you see the gold again? Yes. This guy doesn't have a whole ton of gold on him, so I wouldn't pay super close attention to it, but he's got a little bit on like the handles of his daggers here. I'm not sure. I'd have to go digging for another example of more gold. Which mini is that dwarf? That dwarf is the Reaper Dungeon Dwellers. What do you call it? The Reaper Dungeon Dwellers. Borin something or other. I think it's
Borin Ironbrow, I think.
It is Borin Ironbrow Dwarf Fighter. I got to
Man, look at me. I know my models.
07, 011. Yeah. My wife was sweet enough to let me build the giant miniature storage rack behind here. So, and all the same techniques that we cover today are applicable enough that if you want to say do like sky earth non-metallic metal or something, you can apply these same principles in just slightly different ways to get that that horizon effect stuff. So these are just doesn't really matter exactly what colors you're using. It just matters where you're putting everything. So we'll go ahead and give this a shot with everybody. So, all right. I think I had one more thing I wanted to cover before we began. What is that? It's slipping my mind. So we'll have to see if we can recover it. As far as paintbrushes go, I use a Raphael 8404 size 0 for nearly everything. I actually number them so that I can keep track of which one of them I'm using. And I just basically use them until they perish from overuse. This one is fresh out of the package, so he might require a little bit of love to get the tip perfect. But basically, this is just a nice brush we can blend with. Size-wise, I understand that Winsor and Newton and Da Vinci's run a little bit different size than the Raphaels. So my 0 is probably going to be the equivalent to a size 1 brush from most of those other lines. So. Don't get too hung up on the size of your brush in this one. We can do a lot of different things there. It's like, yes, Robert, we do have Reaper John moderating there. Patrick asks, do I have any tips for picking color combinations? You know, my biggest tip is just try things. I experiment, and sometimes I find a color combination and it's like, oh man, that was the deal. I need to do that every time. And other times I find I was like, it worked, but it wasn't my favorite. And oftentimes it's going to matter what the other colors on your miniature are as you're working on everything. So my biggest tip is just make sure that you flip the paint bottles upside down and check them from side to side, like check them from left to right, right to left, make sure you've got a nice color gradient. But I've been talking too much without doing enough painting. So it's time for us to get rocking and rolling on this. Like I said, I love this guy's sword because his sword has so many facets on it that you get lots of opportunity to define where the shadows and the highlights are going to be. So first things first, we need to base coat this, sword. So I'm going to go ahead and take my wet palette here. I'm going to swing it into view for you. It'll throw off your color idea because it's all yellow. So don't get too hung up if my colors look a little different than yours do. But what I want you to do is I want you to take your shadowed stone or whatever your middle gray is, and I want you to put it near the upper middle of your palette. And just get yourself a nice blob to work with there. And then this is going to be very similar to what everybody saw in my blending class if they caught any of those. But if I use this paint directly as it is, it's too thick. I want to put some water into this paint to thin it down a little bit and get it ready for use. So I take my paintbrush, I dip it in my water, and I get a droplet of water on the end. Now, unfortunately, I know from experience there's just ever so slightly too much water, so I'm gonna. This is a new brush. I haven't figured out how much water it holds, so I just wicked a little bit of it off, and now I'm gonna mix that water into the paint. And I work out to the sides of the puddle. If you spread it out too much, you're just gonna make the puddle dry extra fast. So try not to get too crazy with the spreading of the paint. And yeah. Now, what we can check whether our paint is of an appropriate thickness or not by taking our paintbrush and drawing out some of the paint in the puddle to make little amoeba appendages. If those amoeba appendages shrink back on themselves but don't immediately break into beads, then your paint is about the right consistency for a lot of the layering and a lot of the things that we're going to do together. If you draw it out and it doesn't move, your paint is too thick. But if you draw it out and it instantly breaks into beads, then your paint is probably a little bit on the thin side. In this case, like I said, I'm just learning this new paintbrush here since I just broke him out. So I put in a little too much water. It's just ever so slightly too much. So I'm going to add, you could get away with this consistency. I'm just going to add one more drop of paint to my puddle in order to thicken it up a little bit. Hopefully that should work for everybody. So then as soon as I added that in, I'm going to mix it back in. I always hate to break out a new paintbrush just because I know it changes exactly how much water my paintbrushes hold and everything, but it's one of those things that you got to do eventually. And the one I was using in my last classes was starting to get into its twilight years. So, okay, so now I'm just going to check it again. That makes me a little happier. It's taking a little longer to break up. So, okay, now go ahead and take your miniature, take your paint, and just go ahead and evenly coat the entire sword in this gray. If you primed your miniature black, you might have to do this just a couple more times than I have to do this, but like I said, there's no real harm to any of that. And hopefully, if you've washed your miniature with soap and water, you should have no issues with the paint adhering to the miniature. You should be all good to go. And it looks like there's actually a little bit of a mold line on the back of the sword. That's okay. We'll just paint a little thickly there, help obscure the mold line. And we're just going to need to do this probably a couple times in order to get the opacity of the paint up to a point where we can work with this as a solid mid-tone. Going to check the leading edge. I think it looks pretty good. So this is obviously not going to cover in one coat. You can see little bits of the gray showing through. That's fine. It just means I just have to be careful. I have to let the miniature dry entirely before I try to put on another coat. Otherwise, I will rip up portions of that half-dry paint and spread it across the sword, and then I'll create texture for myself that when I'm trying to blend later on, it's just going to be hard to overcome that texture, and then you get in this cycle of things getting more and more textured, and it's harder and harder to blend, and it could be kind of nasty. So let's avoid that by waiting for this to dry in the first place. Michael says, my paint amoebas never shrink or break, even well past when it gets thin or messy. Any ideas? You might be using a larger brush than mine, or just generally pulling more paint out from your amoeba. I'm creating fairly thin appendages. If you're creating fairly thicker appendages in the first place, it may not they may not break up, or they may not behave well for you. So if the amoeba technique is not working for you, the other way that you can judge your paint is just, a lot of people say, like, skim milk, or you can take the paint and let's wipe off the majority of it on my thumb here and then paint over my thumbnail. you want to see it generally when you're getting ready to blend. You want to see that it's slightly transparent, but still going to coat for me. Could it have anything to do with the type of paper? Oh, you know, I've actually never used anything other than parchment paper, so that is a possibility. I actually took several master level courses in surface chemistry, so I can't vouch for the surface chemistry of the different paper types. So we could actually go do water droplet experiments, but we don't have time for all that. So currently only have the paper that came with the Masterson palette. I've never heard good things about that paper. If you have a chance, just go to your Walmart and get parchment paper. If you can see that here, you can get Reynolds brand or anything. It's for baking cookies on. It's waxless wax paper. It apparently works a lot better than the Masterson stuff. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we can do the water droplet experiments next year. We just need the right equipment and the camera and everything. So gotcha. Yeah, so several people are saying that, are giving some advice on the things there. Oh, just a quick note for everybody there. If you respond to somebody in chat, you have to be careful. You have to make sure that you select in the to field at the bottom all panelists and attendees, or else I'm the only one who can. Me and John are the only ones who can see your responses. So, yeah. So, like I said, if you're having trouble making the paint amiibo work well for you, then you're going to just want to then just try to aim for 2% skim milk. Or sorry, like skim milk consistency there. Let me show you one other trick here. So because you want to keep the surfaces smooth in the first place, you want to, let me start over. Because you want to keep your metal surfaces smooth before you've even applied paint to them or as you're applying paint to them, it helps if the underlying plastic or metal is smooth. In that case, if you find that you've got a relatively rough surface, then I actually just take Reaper brush on sealer and I apply it unthinned straight from the paint over whatever surface I'm going to paint. It's usually common, if I'm painting a metal miniature especially, it is common practice for me to give a unthinned coat of brush on sealer to the entirety of like a sword blade or anything, or like an axe blade or anything that I'm going to paint metal later. So I go through tons of this stuff just for small gap filling and for smoothing things out before you work on them. So, okay, my paint is dry enough now that I can apply that second layer of gray. So I'm going to go back to my stone gray and I'm just going to quickly put in a second coat. And now I'm pretty happy because the second coat is essentially reaching full opacity. Depending on how much you thinned your paints, depending on how well you washed the sword, depending on what colors you're using, you may have to do 3 coats. Just so don't sweat it if it's taking you more coats than it's taking me here. It's nothing you're doing wrong. It's just part of the whole process. This side was a little wet still, so I'm being gentle when I'm kind of dabbing the paint more than really like stroking it, so that if there is any wet paint still, I'm less likely to disturb it and drag it along the miniature. So there we go. I think we've got a reasonably coated blade. Do I boil what for 10 minutes in the microwave? The paper or like the sponge, or what are we talking about here? Oh, the Masterson paper. I've never, like I said, I have it because I have a Masterson Stay Wet palette, but I've never actually used it because a bunch of people just told me, hey, the parchment paper works better and you can get it like by the 60 square feet for like $2. So it's easier to keep in stock for me. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. Yeah. That sounds like everybody's giving a lot of good advice on the palette paper side of things. So, okay. There we go. We should be in pretty good shape with this old guy. Let's while he's drying, we're going to go ahead and begin applying our other paints to our wet palette here. So If you take any other classes with me, you know I like to give a very fastidious placement of my paints to help me remember which paint I'm working on, and I'm going to do the same thing here. In the interest of making sure, however, I'm going to do something a little different than I did in my blending classes, where I went smoothly between my mid-tone down to my shadows and then from my mid-tone up to my highlights. Because you see, the hardest thing that I find about non-metallic metal, and that many people find, is deciding where to have the highest highlight placement, where to have the deepest shadow placement. So what I'm going to go ahead and do with you now is I'm going to show you how to sketch out your highest highlight and your deepest shadows in kind of a formulaic approach. And then once we've defined those, then we're going to actually blend up from our shadows to our midtones and down from our highlights to our midtone. So we'll give that a shot here. So go ahead and grab your linen white out and your brown liner, and I'm going to put those on the sides of my palette, far away from my midtone here. I'll put out the white liner, the linen white. Sorry, I said white liner. That would be amazing. I don't think that would line very well, but it would be. If it had the same consistency as the liner paints, I would be happy.
I'll add it to the list.
Okay, and we'll put out the brown liner. With these, you want them to be somewhat similar consistency to what you used last time. You're going to try to build these up pretty quickly, and they don't need to thinly glaze over each other. So you don't have to get too crazy in watering them down. Like I said, I'm still learning this new paintbrush and how much water it holds. So I'm only going to touch the slightest amount of water to the paintbrush. That looks good. And I'm going to do the same thing over on the linen white. My linen white tends to be a little thin already, so I'm not going to add very much water to that. So you want to add just enough water that it doesn't start to like clump up on you as you paint, but not so much that it's just a glaze at that point. What colors were just laid out? The linen white is over here. Brown liner is over here. Let's see. All right. Now, we're going to work with these paints, and I'm going to, I find it easier to first pick my highlight areas, and then we'll go in and put our darkest shadows in. So if I was going to look at this sword, and I was like, hey, this guy is standing dramatically out in the sun or out on the battlefield with, a light coming down from above him, I would say that this face up here on his blade is basically going to be the one closest to the light and most oriented to reflect the light. So I'm going to take my white, my linen white, and I'm just going to very heavily put that up here. You probably are going to need a couple coats. Don't worry about it. Just kind of, this is just a sketching point or a sketching opportunity at this point. So go ahead and put that up there. Now, I'm going to look at these other facets of the blade, and I'm going to say, hey, so this portion up here of this front cutting facet is probably going to be shadowed by the blade coming out from coming over it. So that would mean that this facet of the blade is the one most likely to catch the light. And then I'm going to repeat that exact same logic down here, and I'm going to say that, man, if this, kind of jagged cutting surface is going to get shadowed up here, that means it's going to be catching the light down here. All right. So we've kind of defined three areas that are going to catch the light: this top edge, this cutting surface, and this right down here. I'm going to clean my brush off real quick. And here we go. And now I'm going to move my palette out of the way so that you guys can get better color fidelity again. Just know that when I'm grabbing my black, so to speak, what I'm really meaning is I'm grabbing my brown liner. And if I say I'm grabbing my white, what I really mean is that I'm grabbing my linen white, okay? Should we paint both sides of the sword in the same white areas? Not at all. In fact, this is normally like in my blending class, people can be like, oh yeah, this is where we're going, and then jump ahead. In this case, please work slowly, facet, step by step, work each facet slowly, step by step with me, and I'll try to set you up for success as we go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, okay, if a given area of metal is in the light, that means that the area kind of right next to it should be really dark, because metals kind of reflect either all of their light back at you or pretty much none of their light back at you. So let's go ahead and grab the brown liner, and what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to say, hey, if we've got this really bright facet, then right next to it, none of that light is going to get reflected back. So we can go ahead and make that brown liner. And so we're going to end up making this little checkerboard pattern across our miniature. Now we're going to say that, hey, this area under these cutting facets, yeah, there's no way that's going to reflect any light back at the viewer because it's literally underneath a portion of the blade. So go ahead and splash some black in there. Now, we're going to grab and splash. And once again, when I say black, what do I mean? I mean brown liner, but it's easier to say a one-word color than all that stuff. And we're going to splash black up against here. And then we're going to splash some black up against here. Now, when we start doing that, one of the things that you'll end up doing as you work on this stuff is you'll notice that pretty much for every to make things look as shiny as possible, you should have white surfaces or white facets next to black facets, and then the facet itself can transition all the way from black to white, like we have over here. So all the way from black to white through gray, or from black to white through gray. Now, you might say, why wouldn't we go from black to white right here? Well, the reason we're not going to go from black to white right here is because this big facet of the sword has so much more surface area, and it's so much more exciting to look at. And ultimately, we're creating an optical illusion here. So it would be better to take this bigger facet and make it go all from black to white than to make this little facet go from black to white. And I realize I didn't give you a full explanation of that. So as we do this, hang in there with me. I'm going to grab my white, and I'm going to color in right here, right up against the bottom of the blade. Don't worry about that little area right there. I'm just going to fill that one in with some black liner or some brown liner. Now, if I've just made this facet white, we said that adjacent to any white facet, you should have black, right? So I've got a little bit of a black right here, but if I tried to make this little facet go all the way from black to white, then I would end up with white next to white, and it wouldn't look proper. So I'm going to say that this bigger facet is more important, and I'm going to make sure that it is able to go all the way from black to white. And then I'll kind of fudge things with this little facet and say, it's only going to go from black to gray. And that way, since it's not exactly the same color as the big facet, you will get a little bit of you'll get a little bit more of the white of this facet will appear shinier, and it will there will be a sharper distinction in the geometry of the blade than if I made things white there. So yeah, Ken Howard says that is the problem I always have: two facets meeting, etc. That tends to be the trick, especially with really complicated metal components, is deciding how to deal with those circumstances where you try to make every facet transition from white to black or from black to white, but then sooner or later, if you pick some facets to go from black to white and white to black, you're going to get other facets that don't allow you to evenly do that, or you'll end up with white next to white or black next to black. In that case, I try to just go from black to gray, or from white to gray to the mid-tone. And does it matter exactly how I pick those? No, not particularly. We could have painted this blade choosing this as the white surface and this is the black surface and done a bunch of things backwards. All that matters at the end of the day is that we're going to have some areas that are very bright white, and they're next to some areas that are very dark black, and put together, they're going to look really shiny. Now, so if we had a flat blade without all the changes, what would we change? That's a very good question. And in fact, I want to see if it will let me, if Zoom will let me share screens here. So in my Discord channel, in the Ian Markon one, not in the Ian Markon chat one, I put a link to an Orc Warrior painting guide that let's see here. I'm going to try to stop sharing here. Give me a second. That I wrote for Reaper a while back. And the nice thing about this guide is I was able to put some images in it that I think will help guide you all through this. So I want to share this one. There we go. All right, right now, hopefully you guys can all see the PDF of my Orc Warrior painting guide. Is that correct, chat? Can you? Is that what you guys are seeing? Awesome, thank you. Okay. So you can see that his blade, his Orc Warrior blade, if you see like A, B, C, D, E, F, and G up at the top of the screen, the figure 13 non-metallic metal steel sword, his blade is a far different geometry than the one we're working at right now, and it's a lot simpler. So what I did in step B is, oh, I'm getting more from chat here. Oh, it's linked in the Discord. Yes, thank you, Christina. Let's see. Thank you guys for sending that link there. Yep. So what you can see here is that I just decided that the facet of that big white shiny triangle, that was the key view of the blade. And I said, this is going to be white. And if that's going to be white, then I need to make the area next to it black. And I need to traverse down the entire length of the facet and make the other side of that facet black. And if I do that, then I need to make everything next to that white. So you just pick that one important shining, yes, Scott, there, I do place my blacks and my whites as a guide of how I transition. So pick that first key white area that you're like, this must be shining white, and then define everything from there. Let's see, I'm going to switch back over to my other camera so I can start pointing to things here. I'm going to stop sharing. Let's see. And close that down and share again. Advanced content from second camera. All right, I think we're back to normal here. And pulling chat back up. There we go. Okay. So Christina, when would you choose to have a light spot in the middle of the blade? You've seen that in non-metallic metal before. You could do that at any time. The trick is that people tend to think that non-metallic metal is this one big monolithic technique that everybody does exactly the same way. But the real trick to the matter is that we are purposely trying to generate an illusion. We're trying to generate an illusion like a bunch of different illustrators do to make things appear metal when in fact they're not actually metal, right? And there are many different ways to sell that illusion. So the way that I'm going to teach you now is fairly formulaic and not the only way to do things. But those people that tend to make the middle of a blade light then tend to make the areas near it like quickly transition into dark, like on either side of it, or do something like that. Yes, Emily, can you show our mini while talking so I can catch up? Yes. Here is the miniature. Sorry. Let me grab my dwarf again here. You see my dwarf's like thigh guards, whatever you want to call those. This is more similar to that, using the center of the blade as a light source. Basically, I just picked the middle of the thigh guard and made it light, and then I transitioned back into gray on either side of it through blending. You could do that on a blade. There's that produces a very striking result. But I guess what I'm trying to say is here, that could work. There are many situations and many type of people that's how they will teach you to do non-metallic metal. Nothing wrong with it. This is just the particular illusion that I'm going to try to teach you guys today involves going to the sides of the facets. Typically, if you're going to make the middle of something shiny, that works better on a rounded surface than a flat surface. And we could define some of these things as rounded surfaces, but I'm going to go ahead and call them all flat for our purposes. Yes, mathing out where to place reflections is what trips up a lot of people. So we'll talk about the way that I mentally process the photons and where they're going. But please know that there are many other ways to process all those photons. Can I post the dwarf to my Discord? I can certainly do that in a little bit here. I can give some links to that. But going back to our miniature, hopefully right now everybody has this look going on in their blade. Let's see. Do I look at references before approaching non-metallic metal on a new miniature? I do not. That's probably a weakness of mine as a painter, is I just jump in and I start running through painting principles instead of actually going and looking at references. Depends on the style you're going. Mine is heavily illustrative, or illustrative instead of realistic. References would probably help you more if you're going for a more realistic approach. Should the linen be opaque? Thank you, Michael. I'm getting right back to that right now. That is the next step, is that we need to make sure to make that white opaque. So the next step is we're going to jump back in here and we're going to apply a second coat of our linen white to things to make the paint opaque. It doesn't have to be opaque all the way through, because eventually we're going to blend it. So you can let the area that's facing towards the gray be slightly non-opaque if you want it to, but you want the area right up against the black to be very opaque. So I don't stare at metal as millers. Well, I do, but I actually work in the melt shop of a steel mill, so I see mostly glowing orange metal at the end of the day, and most of mine is not cool enough for me to really get good tips for the non-metallic metal techniques.
I think we found the secret chat.
Yeah. Okay. And in fact, we're probably going to need a third coat on this. And I'm actually going to really quick go add a second coat to my black. Once again, it's not really black. It's just brown liner, but. Make sure you have a nice, sharply defined transit. Oh, darn it. I slipped. Don't worry. We can fix it. There we go. One thing I hope I can make everybody realize as they watch me is that I've been painting for many, many moons at this point, like 17 years, and I make mistakes all the time. The trick to painting is not to not make mistakes. It's to just know how to go fix your mistakes when you're all done. So yeah, we're getting the dark and light. And you know what I'm going to do real quick to help us out? I'm going to take a bunch of that blue liner and I'm just going to really quickly line the sword. I'm going to define where the blade meets the handle. I'm going to do that all the way around. My painting handle's too tall for that angle. All right, there we go. Now, if a sword is being held lower, is it okay to have some white where shadows would normally fall to get more interest? Absolutely. In fact, it doesn't matter where the sword is held. I would always have the blade. You always have to have the non-metallic metal reflecting some light, and that could be light coming off the ground. It could be light coming from the sky. So really, you're always going to want white in there. Good question. How best to get a clear line where they meet? Jared asks. One of the biggest tricks is that when you're working on the facet, try to use the geometry of the facet to your benefit. So in this case, I'm holding my paintbrush at a very, like almost parallel to the surface of that facet and trying to drag my paintbrush along it. Oh, sorry, I'll move it to the black here. So I'm dragging my paintbrush parallel to that surface. And therefore, there's actually a geometry difference between this facet and this facet. And so it helps prevent my paint from leaking over onto the other geometry. Okay. Now, somebody asked about the back of the blade. And we'll talk about that. Let's talk about that right now. So the back of the blade, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to, flip the blade over and ask, well, wait a second, if this facet is white, what should the facet next to it be? And hopefully as a class, we can answer dark, or like, there we go. So do that number real quick, right? And then we can see right here, this is going to have to be dark, right? Yeah, thank you, David, for coursing with me as part of the class there. So let's make that one dark. We're going to make this area dark. And that's good. Actually, we're going to make this area dark. I'm cheating. I'm going ahead in my mental model, but we got the paint right here. So let's just make that facet dark. All right. Now, if we've defined those areas, we can also go define the facets next to those, right? Because now we look at the blade from this angle and we're like, well, obviously, if that facet is black, then this facet is going to have to be white, right? In the same way, we can define this as white. Yes, there is a lot of definition going on there, Peter. You're right. We can define this as white. Now you may be like, but Ian, you just said that these underhangs are going to be shadowed by the metal above them. And that's right. That's exactly what I said. But remember, we were painting an illusion. So what's more important is that our illusion holds true than that what I did was exactly how the photons were going to bounce. So it's more important to me that I have black next to white than it is that I exactly, map out how all the light is going to bounce off of everything. So, plus we are going to get a little bit of light bouncing off the ground and hitting these facets. So don't let that trip you up. Just make sure that at the end of the day, when you flip the sword like this, you see a checkerboard. See what I'm talking about? So, good. All right. Now there's one more facet we have to define on this side of the blade, which is if this is going to be white, this needs to be black. So let me clean the white off of my blade, or my paintbrush, sorry, not my blade. And make this area dark. In which case I tried to do too much mental processing earlier, and what did I do? I just broke my rule. I accidentally put black next to black. That's not going to work. So let's go ahead and grab our gray out and cover this facet back up with gray. Redefining the illusion, right? Now, past this, we would flip ourselves over to the back of the blade. The back of the blade is a little goofy because of how its facets are placed. So in this case, we're going to have to kind of, we're going to have to freestyle a little bit. The one thing I am confident of, looking at the back of the blade, is that this little hook would be in the light, right? So I'm going to make that white. And then if that little hook is in the light, then underneath it is going to be shadowed. And then past that, I'm gonna blend a gray, and I'm gonna blend a gray on both sides of those things. That's all I'm gonna do on the back of the blade. And that's just to keep me from having white next to white or black next to black anywhere else on the miniature. Taylor, how do I handle a triangular set of facets? So for example, let's say you're talking about, so let's talk about the tip of the Master Sword. Are you, Taylor, are you familiar with Link's Master Sword off the top of your head? Yes. All right. If I was handling the master sword and I was just talking about the tip of the master sword, what I would do, once again, this is just me trying to make an illusion, is that I would make, so his master sword has, you know, like the two curving up cutting facets and then the central flat facet. I would make this cutting facet white. I would make this cutting facet black, and I would leave the middle cutting facet, I would leave the middle facet gray. And then I would probably like put to Christina's point earlier, I might put like white in the center of that flat facet or something like that, to way farther down the blade. But right at the tip of the blade, I'd have white, black, and gray all meeting together. So cool. Somebody else asked me a question and I started to answer it and I felt so bad because I got distracted. Somebody asked, you know, what do you do if you have like the standard you know, diamond cross-section blade? What you do is you make the upper face white, you make this one black, you make this one black, you make this one white, and you just have an opposite pattern together. So in many cases, these are actually way easier to do than the blade that we're working on today. But the reason that I picked the blade that we're working on today is because it has so many facets, so it really makes you stop to think about why each of them are going to be the color that you're going to make them there. So can we see the back of the sword again? Yes, you most certainly may. So I'm going to flip them over, and congratulations, we have a reverse of what we've been doing elsewhere. And I'm just putting the lining back in. This is actually not going to be a black facet of the blade. Okay, now, in the interest of time, because when I'm doing just a single non-metallic metal blade on my own, not in front of a camera, it can take me a couple hours to sit there and blend everything. I am now going to forget that the back of the blade exists because we've defined where our light and our black are. Past this, it's just blending. So I am going to only work on the front of the sword with you guys now, and I'm going to make this, I'm going to take this all the way from the highlight and shadow sketching to completed sword blade, and that will give you the most bang for your buck, I think. Can we see the spine, please? Yes. And by that, let's see, there we go. So there's the back. Once again, white, because this is like a flat surface that's facing towards the sky, so it's probably going to pick up like that white. And then black. Same thing, I'm going to skip the spine as well, just because once again we have that fairly well. At this point, it's just blending. It's not deciding anything. Do I put light on all the edges since light follows edges? Well, yes, but we will do that once we're done with the blending, so to speak. Do I start with white and black for gold as well? Actually, yes, I do. But I would just start over like that yellow-brown base tone. Once again, this is not, there's nothing magical about starting with these colors other than that it helps me like sketch out my plan before I begin working on it. Timothy, I'm sorry if I made you jump around there too much and lost you there. We're really just going to work on the front of the blade right now. So for everybody who's following along at home, just make sure the front of your blade looks like this, and we will blend this half of the blade. So it feels like we're all overthinking it. To a degree, I'm probably feeding into that a little bit by answering all the questions instead of just like pressing on ahead and showing you guys what we're doing. One thing I need to make sure I specify with non-metallic metals is that it doesn't matter how good you are at them, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing them. As you start on non-metallic metals, as you start defining a new piece, it will look like garbage. And that's there's no real way around that. But if you, once you block everything out with the sketch and you make it look like garbage, if you then sit there and carefully blend, it will transition from garbage into a beautiful diamond at the end of the day. So so basically don't get stressed if as you're starting things are like, man, my blade doesn't look so good, because our blades are going to be in that condition for probably the next half hour before they start really looking good on us here. So all right, I'm just upping the opacity here a little bit on a couple of these things. And if I stop talking, it's probably because I'm semi-holding my breath for accuracy. So hope you'll forgive me. Also, I'm going to have to be careful with this brush. When you get a very new brush, it tends to have a point that is too sharp to hold, that is too sharp to actually let paint flow off of it. So I've got that going on with this brush. I'm going to real quickly fix it. Please do not do this unless you've painted for a while and you know what you're doing. But that tip of this paintbrush is too sharp for me. So I've got my little end nippers and I'm going to just ever so slightly dull the tip of that. Mm-hmm. Yes, that should be scary. Don't do that unless you know what you're doing. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. I might get in trouble for the legality of trimming the paintbrush like that. The biggest thing is don't pick that central bristle out. And in fact, actually, I'm going to get something sharper and do it again.
Ooh, bated breath, chat.
There we go. All right. We made it. All right. You guys are watching me break in a new brush. Like I said, usually I don't like to do that when I'm teaching, but my other one was just starting to finally show its age. So, all right, we're good to go. It still comes to a very fine point, and I'm actually going to, because my paper towels are abrasive, as I continue to paint, I'm going to keep sharpen. I always do this number as I'm taking water off my paintbrush, and that continues to, just like sharpening a knife, sharpen my paintbrush, and it physically abrades it down and keeps it sharp as I work. So, all right, let's see. Here we go. Feels like I watched someone remove the mattress tag. I love that. I'll try to put the censor bar in next time. I don't want to, you know, give or give like a mature content warning or something like that when I trim my brushes. So, okay. All right. We've got things sketched out. This one facet is still annoying me for lack of opacity. So I'm just gonna splash some stuff in there again. And now we're good to go. So let's go back to our palettes and get all the paint ready on our palettes, and then we'll move forward. So I always like to blend my shadows first. There's no magic to that. It's the way I like to do it. And shadows are generally a little bit more forgiving. So that's what we're going to do here now too. So I want you to break out your brown liner again, right? Or whatever your darkest liner color is. And if you've ever worked with me before, I keep my paint in 2 rows. So this top row is going to be all the pure colors directly out of the bottles. And this row underneath is going to be all my like mixes in between my colors. So I'm going to take brown liner and I'm going to put a single drop down here. Now I'm going to put it away. I'm clean out the paint bottles real quick so they clog on me less. Now I'm going to grab my Ancient Oak. Make sure that you shake it up. Yeah, I like the graphic content band. That's a good point. Thank you. Petrus, if your paints are drying out, that's okay. Mostly we're going to be working with the new paints we're putting on our paint palette here right now. So we'll make it. Ancient Oak, put a big pool right here in our pure colors row, and then put 1 drop here and 1 drop here. Here we go. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and grab our shadowed stone again. And all I need to do with this is I just need to put 1 drop in here. So at the end of the day, what are we looking at? Well, we're looking at a top row of paints that are brown liner, Ancient Oak, shadowed stone. And then beneath, we have 50-50 shadowed stone and Ancient Oak, and 50-50 Ancient Oak and brown liner. And I'm going to mix just a little bit of water into each of those here real quick so that they're at good layering consistency. Taking care of my Ancient Oak. Take care of that 50-50 mix. And then, oops, a little too much water. And we're going to get the 50-50 between the gray and the green. All right. Now, just looking at this visually on our palettes, how smooth the transition between each color is going to depend on exactly which paints you're using. So I'm looking at these, and I'm going to be like, that to that, yeah, we're going to have no problem. That to that, probably no problem. That to that, probably no problem. This to this, I don't think that's going to work. So we might have to, what we might have to do is we have to grab a brush full of this color, a brush full of this color, and then you mix a 50-50 between those 50-50s. Need a little bit more of this. And then that'll help us make our transition here a little later. But at the moment, what we're going to start with is we're going to start with this color, our 50-50 Ancient Oak and Brown Liner. And we're going to grab that on our brush. And we're going to have like maybe a third of the brush covered with the paint. And I'm going to wipe off some of it on my thumb so that my bristles just glisten with the color instead of being loaded with it. There we go. And now we're going to go find our black, and we're going to drag the shadow away from, we're going to drag our paintbrush away from the black and towards the gray, and go a little bit past where you left the boundary of your last color. Now I'm going to load my paintbrush again, and I'm going to start partway into the black here, right? And then I'm going to drag my paintbrush down towards the gray, and I'm going to eat up just a little bit of that black and extend the boundary further down. Now I'm going to do the same thing right here. And then I'm going to do the same thing right here. All right. Now we'll go look at it and say, hey, did those colors blend pretty well together? On my miniature, yeah, they're working out pretty well for me here. I might need to extend that area a little bit, clean up the edge. But they appear to be blending pretty nicely. If they're not blending nicely for you, then what you want to do is you want to go over to, well, here, I'm going to, I'll mess up a blend before too long, and I'll give you I'll get to show it to you then. We're going to go over to our Ancient Oak now. So grab your Ancient Oak and take it off on your thumb. Reach into the color that you just laid down and drag your paintbrush towards the gray. Once again, extend a little bit past where the last color finished. I'm going to need a little bit more on my brush. And the biggest deal is I just know that when I get to the middle of that facet, it still needs to be gray. So I don't want to eat up too much space here before we get there. Let's see here. Let's see. Does the previous color need to dry first? Generally speaking, that's the best condition. It's going to depend on the humidity in your area as to how quickly things will have dried. If you're gentle, you can do a little bit of wet blending with a semi-wet color, but just make sure that it's dry enough that you're not peeling up paint when you work on to the next step. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and grab my Ancient Oak again, and I'm going to get those other facets. Now this one's harder because, like I said, I need to be gray by here. So I don't want to eat up too much real estate with this. So I'm only going to extend this ever so slightly. Same down here. This one I got a lot of room because I just need to make sure I'm gray by the time I get to the bottom of the facet. And now you're going to want to grab your 50/50 ancient oak and shadowed stone. And you're going to want to reach up there and you're going to want to start dragging. You're going to, or I should say not start, you're going to want to continue to drag down towards the gray. So far, so good, right? We're almost there. We're actually making our color transitions begin to happen. Let's see. This one, like I said, I have to be very careful. I can only barely move that leading edge forward. This one I have a lot more room to play with. Not bad, not bad. One area that I don't like how it's blending so far is this little area on my sword. You can kind of see a little bit of a line. I'm going to go back and grab the ancient oak again. And I'm just going to remove, once again, I'm going to remove most of it on my finger. And then I'm just going to do a majestic little wiggle line along that offending color transition. For anybody who got to see my blending classes, this is wiggle line getting used over and over again.
Here's a good question from Patrick.
Yes.
It says, on a larger item, would you need more transition colors or just larger transitions?
Just more, just larger transitions. If you had space to work in more colors, then you could work in more colors. But yeah, you just need larger transitions. The bigger the item is, the harder it gets to have the smooth blends. So I might have to mix more and more little half and half corrective tones in between my colors. But yeah. David says he's lost. Can you review the colors I'm laying down again? Okay. Really, at the start of the day, what we're doing is we took our brown liner and we defined all the facets, right? Then I moved to this color and I extended the facet down a little further. Then I moved to this color and I extended the facet down a little further. Then I moved to this color and I extended the facet down to its current location. Now, finally, I'm going to, we can still see a little bit of a color transition between this 50/50 ancient oak and shadowed stone. So I mixed a little half and half between these two pools that I'm going to use to finish off the transition to the medium gray. And I'm just going to do a little wiggly line right there at the final transition. I'm going to move this out of the way so hopefully you get better color fidelity. What is the smallest number of transitions one can use? It depends on how good you are at blending and the colors that you're using. There's no really like good answer to that one. If you were doing a smaller item, we may not be able to get through all of these half and half mixes. Maybe we would just use the main mixes. I guess that's the closest way I can find to giving you a full answer to that one there. We got to eat up a little bit of that white. There we go. Go away. Little white, offending white overbleed. There we go. There we go. And now at this point, hopefully, we have smoothly blended from our deepest shadows all the way back to our middle gray. Let me see here. Let me catch up on the notes here. It's a little hard to see. Can I just point out where the transition ends on the blade? Ideally, I shouldn't be able to because I shouldn't be seeing it too well. But to give you like a mathematical definition of where everything is, you're going to want to maybe use it. So your middle section needs to be gray, right? So the top section needs to be, let's see if I can, here, I'm going to do a refocus and see if that helps y'all out here a little bit better. Okay. So what you're going to want to do here is I covered maybe this much of the blade with brown liner. Then I moved down and I covered maybe this much of the blade with the 50/50 brown liner and ancient oak. Then I moved down and I covered maybe this much of the blade with ancient oak. Then I moved down and I covered maybe this much of the blade with the 50/50 ancient oak and shadowed stone. Yep. A little hard to see the transition, Dean. That's the goal, because if we're blending well, you're not going to be able to see the transition. If you can see the transition, it means you're not blending well enough, if that makes sense. Tammy, this is my first non-metallic metal try, and I'm not going to lie, I'm a little frustrated. Remind me why this is better than metallic paints. I don't know that I would say that it's better than metallic paints. I like it because it's ultra controllable, but I'm not going to lie, this is a little bit more of like a competition or a display model painting technique than a lot of your true metallic metals end up being there. It does photograph much easier, as Christina put in there. And then, as Scott said, it is a choice of what you like. So, Michael, late question, why ancient oak? Why do I use that in my recipe? It just added a little bit more color interest into things there. It was a dark color that did that. Yep, it's a tool for your toolbox, and it's great blending plastic, or blending practice, and it does help make some killer power swords, as Ian Williams said there. Should the gray still stand out, Michael asks? That's a very good question. Ideally, we should not see a transition line between the last green gray and the middle green, or in the middle gray. If we do, then mix up more half and half. Like if you're having trouble between this and the gray, then put a little bit of that down, put a little bit of this down, and use that little micro color to finesse the very edge of the fending transition. At this point, what we're doing is less about non-metallic metal when we get down to this level, and more about how to create smooth blends. Aaron says, it seems like each color so far is roughly a third of the upper section overlapping, since there are 4 color mixes. That seems pretty reasonable there. Everyone keeps referring back to non-metallic metal when doing skin, hair, leather. Yeah, what they're really meaning when people refer back to non-metallic metal for all those different items is that you want to be able to go from white to black and blend smoothly. And this is what they mean by all that there. All right. It is an excellent exercise in pushing contrast there. Yeah, don't get discouraged, folks. If you're struggling with this point, remember, what did I say before we began all this? I said that you are going to reach a point where what you're working on looks like garbage. Please do not become discouraged at that point, and please keep pushing on through all the steps. Right now, what I've got still does not look even remotely like metal, right? So we'll keep pushing it forward. Just believe you can do it. We can hang in there. So hopefully we have semi-decent transitions to our shadows right now. If you don't, that's okay. Set it aside. Come back to it once we finish doing the highlights. Now let's go back to our palette. We're going to want to do the same thing, but now we're going to want to eat our way down from the highlights back to the middle. So we've got our linen white, right? Go ahead and grab your linen white bottle again. And go ahead and give yourself 1 droplet right here. Dean, I love that. Yes, photograph your work in progress to remind yourself next time how long how you were able to fight past this difficult stage. That's very good. Then go ahead and grab your ashen blue. Put down a pure dot of ashen blue. Put down 1 to mix with, and another 1 to mix with. Now, if anybody was in my blending class, do we know from experience that you cannot go straight from linen white to 50-50 ashen blue and then linen white? Yes, we do. But this is for everybody was not in my blending class. How far down are we supposed to go on the blade, David asks. Ideally, you want to have gray left over in the middle of your blade, because the next step is going to be that we're going to take all this white and eat it up and try to leave gray in the middle of the blade. So you want gray in here that you're transitioning from black to gray, ending gray in the middle, and then you're going to transition from white to gray, ending gray in the middle. It is amazing how much the yellow affects the color from a camera. I am sorry. That's why I'm trying not to paint with it underneath my palette. But and then this is just the shadowed stone. I need to add 1 droplet here to that mix so that we get a 50-50 between the ashen and the shadowed stone. And then that paper towel is full of paints. So let me grab another one off of my ratcheting quick release paper towel holder for emergency one-handed paper towel distribution. I got you. I got you. Yeah, no worries. No worries. So, okay. Oops. What do I got to do? Still got to water them down, right? And so, mixing these colors together with a little bit of water. It's looking a little nicer. And for anybody who's wondering, we are definitely going to take just like a short 5-10 minute break once we're done with the steel before we jump into our gold next. So that's about the schedule I'm thinking on for how we move forward from this. We're putting this new brush through its paces here. It's slowly submitting to my will. It usually takes like, it feels like a miniature for me to break in a new brush and get comfortable with its idiosyncrasies each time. So,
real quick, what color did we just add, and what are we 50-50ing it with?
oh, yes. Thank you. So what we added was, if you can see this here, we've got shadowed stone, ashen blue, and linen white. Those make those three main ones, and then we've got 50-50s in between each of those colors. Yeah, Christopher, this non-metallic metal is all about the blends. It is all about that blend. And so we'll keep going with it. It is possible to, if you're like really, really, really good with your color placement, you can fake it, but and not need to have very smooth blends, but blending helps even in those circumstances quite a bit. So thank you. Thanks, chat, for all the help with laying down the colors there and everything. So, okay. Now, what are we going to do? We're going to do the same thing we did, only in reverse. So this time what I want you to do is I want you to grab your 50-50 linen and ashen, right? And we're going to move this way back towards gray, right? Take a bunch of that off on your brush and reach up into your white facets. I'll leave a little bit visible and drag it on down that blade facet. Now, I'm going to need more to cover that up. It's harder to blend highlights than it is to blend shadows, so we're going to have to put our blending skills to the test here. That's okay. We're up for a challenge. That's why we're doing non-metallic metal, right? There we go. Now, that obviously did not blend super well, so we're going to have to go back and fix it, but let's just put this down right now in all the areas and then go back and fix it with, as we learned about in our blending class, the majestic wiggly line. So still working with that 50-50 ashen and linen white, right? And I'm going to flip my miniature upside over so that it's better for me ergonomically to drag the paint from the highlight towards the central gray. Basically, I can just reach things easier is what I'm getting at. Now, a bonus for selling non-metallic metal is that if your transition lines are parallel to the ground, it'll look right. So if I let my color transition between the white and the blue get all like on an angle like this, it's not going to look as good as if I make sure that they transition evenly parallel to the ground. Let's see here. Now we're going to get those two real quick. So still using the same color.
Are you leaving white on the edges?
I'm leaving white. I'm leaving white at the farthest extent of this color. With regard to the edges, the actual edges of the blade, we're going to come back to those once we've done a little bit more on the. Once we've done a little bit more with the color transitions. Oops, I didn't have enough paint on my brush needs cleaning. There we go. Still using the same color, the 50-50. We don't have a whole lot of space to work with on these little facets, but we'll do what we can. All right, I'm going to do one last little dab to increase the opacity of the light blue up here and down here. And while I've got it, I'm just going to do it right here too. Why not, right? Okay, starting to define things a little bit, right? But we have left a nasty, pretty sharp color transition between our white and our blue, or this first bluish tone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my palette, and I'm going to grab a 50-50 between this color right here. I'm going to drop a brush full of it there, and I'm going to drop a brush full of the linen white here, and I'm going to mix those two together. And then I'm going to go back to the miniature using that color, and I'm going to try to do little wiggly lines to ease the... Tammy, I'm glad you're appreciating the majesty of the wiggle. Michael, yes, the goal is to still leave gray in the middle. And if you find on the really small surfaces that you've eaten up your gray, don't worry, we can go back and put the gray in. I do that to myself all the time. So grab that transitionary color that we just mixed and do a little wiggle. There we go. And do another little wiggle down here. There's a little bit of a texture to the blade there. I might have to throw some brush on sealer over it. And do the same thing right here. And right there, I'm going to need to get more on my brush. And hopefully we should start to see those transitions disappear. Now, if you do that and there's still a transition line, then we're going to need to get it. Question, does the wiggle go over the linen white or only over the 50-50 mix? John, it goes over the boundary in between the two of those. It goes over that defined line we have just created. Andy, sorry, lost connection for a bit, so I won't be able to play along. Is it always from dark to light? Well, it's always from dark towards midtone and from light towards midtone is the answer to that. I'm actually going to quickly grab a little bit more of my linen white because linen white doesn't, for all of its majesty, it doesn't cover very well. And I'm going to just stroke this back towards the light to aid my transitions. Now, if I was going to submit this to competition or something like this, I would not be content here. I would sit here and I would finesse all these blends even further. But for purposes of the demonstration, we're starting to see what we need to see to move on. All right. Now we need to make that blue disappear. So we're going to go and grab our pure ashen blue. And drag that towards the gray. Now here's where I should make the transition parallel to the ground. If I can. Here, I'm going to try to put this back in the center for you. I've got a little bit of leftover white on the edges I'm trying to eat up. There we go. Getting there. Now I'm going to grab more of the ashen blue and I'm going to flip the miniature over. And I'm going to do these other areas. You know, guys, what I think is throwing off my color so bad today, because I feel like it wasn't this bad the past couple of days. It's that it's earlier in the day, so I'm getting more sunlight in through my windows. And now I've got the more natural sunlight mixing with my lamp light, and I don't have a good way to block that off anymore. With stroking the border, I'm getting a harsher border. That might mean that your paint is a little too thick. If you're not having any trouble controlling it, but it's producing a darker border there, David, then that means that your paint's just a little too thick, or you haven't wiped enough of it off on your finger first. So those would be my my quick fixes to try with this. Let me grab more of that ash and blue. More still. There we go. All right. I'm becoming happier with that transition there. Gotcha. Okay, now we're going to grab our 50-50 of our ashen and our shadowed stone, and we're going to try to erase the borders even further, bringing it down towards the gray. So we're starting to get a pretty decent transition. Not to distract from the current work, but you have an already painted mini with a large surface area like a shield to show what non-metallic metal might look like on that. Let me try to grab one for you here while we're getting ready to move on to the next step here, because I want to give you guys a chance to catch up and finesse your blending after I've done this. So I'll look for something. I'll look for something for you. Oops, I'm holding a little too low. Now, you know I'm cheating if like the miniature disappears off the bottom of the camera and then I bring it back up and suddenly all the blends are perfect or something like that. Yeah, but
I'm watching, just to let you know.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was moderating Aaron's class yesterday, and you know, it's just a new skill that people have to learn, painting on camera. So,
Yep.
be staying in frame.
Thank you. No, I do appreciate having helpers watch. So, okay, I'm going to go back in and I'm actually just I'm going to mix a little 50-50 between my, so I just applied this 50-50 mix of ashen and shadowed, and it's almost perfect, but I think we can just be a little smoother. So I'm going to get a little bit of that, a little bit of this, mix that in. Okay. Wipe that off, clean it off. I earned my clean brush moniker for the obsessive brush cleaning, as you've probably seen at this point. Wiggle line. Wiggle line. Wiggle line. And hopefully, oh, there we go. Look at that, magically blending. All right. Now, is this perfect? No, we could spend a lot more time finessing our blending, but this is honestly a non-metallic metal class, not strictly speaking a blending class. But we'll be good to go. Yeah. Yeah, this is a harder blending. It's harder to be buttery with such a harsh color, or like such a drastic color transitions through all these colors. I know it's choice, but in real life, wouldn't there be more light on the flat blade? It's quite, yes, that is quite possible. And then Ruth, yours doesn't look anything like that. My advice would be that usually I find one of two things is happening. Either your paint is a little too watery, and if you're finding it hard to control where the paint stays, means your paint's too watery, add a little bit more paint to your pools. If your transitions are really harsh, then it generally means that your paint is too thick, or usually you're not wiping enough off on your brush. So I'm not sure if that helps at all, but yeah. To Jared, this is one of those classes that after you've practiced your blending more and more, gets easier and easier. But hopefully, so Sean says it looks like you're leaving a lot of mid gray on the flat part. Yes. Actually, so Jared, I'm not sure if you can see this, but I didn't perfectly blend. So this is the only actual area of pure shadowed stone left on the middle of the blade. But I do have like the 50-50 of shadow with the ancient oak and the 50-50 of shadow with the ashen down here. So it gives us a nice transition through the midtone. Yeah. Good, Dean. I'm glad it's going well for you there. So less is more. Yeah, there can be a lot of less is more with this there. I have too smooth and it looks like cloth instead of metal. I also covered too much brown liner and linen. That happens to me all the time. If you cover too much of your brown liner or your linen white, you can go back in and you can put them back in. The white is often easy to put back in because white doesn't cover anything worth a darn, right? So it's fairly easy to blend with at the end of the day. But okay, we've got the starts of a blade, right? Now, how do we turn this from the start of a blade into the full, like, into a full shining blade? And the answer is we use our pure white. So let's go ahead and dig our pure white out of our paint puddle, and let's just make a puddle for yourself anywhere. We're going to use this basically by itself, so it doesn't matter where you put it on your palette there. Oh, and I had told somebody I was going to dig up a shield or something like that. Let me find something for you real quick. This will not be bad. I've got the cabinet right behind me, so while everybody's catching up there for a second. Matthew, good way to look at it. Yes, this is a perfect chance to keep. If your blends are improving, everything else will come with time here. Let's see. Oh.
Now that he's gone, Chad, we can talk about him.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is not quite a shield, but hopefully this will work for you a little bit. So what this is right here is, this is my Roland miniature from Panda Cult Games. I had a ton of fun with them. And he's got a big old cleaver, right? And a cleaver is just a very big flat surface of metal, but I still went from white basically through shadowed stone, and I don't think I used ancient oak, but I used like black green at the end of things here. Michael, is that just two colors of blending? No, there's actually a little bit of green here, but I didn't put in as much of like the blue and everything. So it's just blending from white to black through the gray. And you can see I defined my white and my black facets and my white and my black facets and made sure that they weren't next to each other. And then it really helps to have that white on the edges of things. And then if I swing his sword back around, now, please keep in mind that this guy I was using for the game, so I didn't blend as nicely as I should. I just wanted to get things there. So this is kind of what we're looking for. Yes. Yeah, I do like Ash there when I start playing with it. It's like, okay, nobody touch my miniature. It's like, I get to move my miniature. This is from the Cult of Barnacle Bay, which is a fantastic cooperative dungeon crawl, if you guys get a chance to play it. Let's see. All right, I'm setting him off to the side here. Let's see. That was one of the larger surfaces. Truth be told, I don't really like to do this technique on really large surface areas. So even on the dwarf that I'm doing right now that I showed you guys earlier, his shield is like, well, heck, I'm gonna paint his shield something like the center something else, and then just use gold in some different way. But this would be a large surface area of it. Would be like his I guess this is kind of his cod piece there or something. But I transition from one side. I've got my white in the center. I've got my dark next to it. And we transition back to the gray. So, how many hours have I spent painting the dwarf so far? I haven't kept super close track of it. I would say that the metal was easily 4 hours. at this point. But yeah, so yeah, and then it's probably a couple, 2, 3 for the face. And I like to sit down in 2 or 3 hour, maybe 4 hour painting blocks and work on things. So, okay. So now what you've probably seen is like a lot of that other metal that I saw in my other stuff actually had white. And that white was helpful to sell the effect of the glistening metal. So we need to do that now with our miniature. And this is another place where it's really nice. If you downloaded that little guide I had of painting the orc, you can go look at the orc's big cleaver and see how we did all this step by step. So okay. Oh, I already put my white down on my palette. I'm getting distracted there. All right. With this, you don't want it to be as thin potentially as we've been using earlier, because if your white gets too thin, it's going to run everywhere. So be careful not to over thin the white at this stage. I would rather you erred on the side of your paint being a little too thick at this stage than on it being a little too thin, if that helps you out. Pure white or linen white. This is pure white. This is one of the times on a miniature that I recommend grabbing your whitest white, because we're trying to represent like the hottest light coming right off the surface there. This is literally supposed to be light reflecting off of our object and towards the viewer. So we've got our pure white, right? It's all good to go. And now we need to kind of define some things a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit of that white and I'm going to put it into the highest highlight up here. So I'm just going to brush towards the point of the weapon. And I'm going to do the same thing with these. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to get the bottom edge. Or not the bottom edge, but the actual edge of that cutting surface. I'll just brighten it up a little bit. I didn't have enough on my brush when I did the second edge, so I'll probably do that one over again here. And then I'm going to put some in right here. Really making it bright and shining and starting to stand out for us a little bit more. Dragon white is pretty close to pure white. If you don't have actual pure white, yep, I use dragon white a ton for all my stuff. I'm getting to the point where I'm drowning in paint bottles, which is a great problem to have, but I find myself unable to even remember all the paints I have. So I'm trying to shift to using almost exclusively the Reaper Bones paints, because I just Anne sent me the whole line at some point, and those have quickly become my absolute favorite paints. So I'm trying to learn to just use those with a few favorites from like the core line, like the liners and stuff, mixed in, just because they're so good. And so I'm trying dragon white. I've been using a bunch lately, and it's just as good as pure white. It's a little bit thicker consistency, but it's very bright. So cool. Yeah, an Excel. I need an Excel spreadsheet for my paints here too. I'm sorry, where are we putting pure white? We are putting pure white at the very tippy tip of the blade, very bottom here, very bottom here, very bottom here. Now we're going to start the fun stuff there. Let's see here. Let's grab our white. And in this case, you're definitely going to need to take almost all of it off on your thumb so that you have a very clean, neat brush. And I want you to use the side of your brush up against that leading cutting edge, and just with very little pressure, slide the brush down the cutting edge. You might have to angle it just a hair to make the effect more pronounced. I'm going to get a little bit more on my brush, take it off on my thumb. And start defining that cutting edge, making it look sharp and white. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to grab my white again, and I'm going to do something very similar to the next lowest cutting facet, but I'm not going to go all the way up into the shadow. I'm just going to reach part way up into the shadow, and I'm going to draw that cutting line down. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to do the same thing down here. we're starting to give it a little bit of a cutting. Sorry, it'll help if I get it out of the white section of my my demonstration area. This is where mold lines can be a killer. Yes. If you have nasty mold lines, sometimes actually the mold lines, if they're sharp enough, can make this a little easier, but usually I try to remove them like on a metal miniature with a file and stuff like that. If it's a plastic miniature with soft detail, I just try to let myself, or I just try not to get too bent out of shape about it and take what the miniature can give me, you know. Okay, that's moving us in a good direction. Let's take our white here again, take most of it off on our thumb, and let's just kind of try to use the edge and get. And if you did like me and you slipped a little bit, no big deal, no big deal. We'll just go over it a couple times, sharpen it up. That would look nicer if I had have blended the back of the blade first, but remember we're skipping that for in the interest of actually showing you guys more non-metallic metal thinking instead of simply me blending for 4 hours. I had to go back to file off a mold line that went across the flat and edge of the character's sword. Yeah, that happens. That's always obnoxious, but I feel your pain. I feel your pain. So, can I do the amoeba test on the white so you can see my paint consistency? Hopefully you can see this is a little thicker than I've been using up to this point, but still it pulls back on itself just relatively slower, or just a little slower. Okay. You know, why don't we, now you can do white on absolutely every edge. I like to be a little selective with it. We can do that one there. But why don't we do it on most of the edges here for ourselves? So the trick is I've been trying to work us from easiest to hardest so that we build up our bravery in order. But if you've watched any Bob Ross painting tutorials, we are now at the point where it's time to do our bravery test. So I hope you guys are feeling brave and ready to demonstrate that bravery. Should the white just be on the diagonal edge or the front? Oh, well, I mean, it's going to bleed over a little bit on either side, but yes, I use the side of my brush and I define just the diagonal, the sharp. If the sharp point of the edge is like this, I run my brush down it like that. If you can see what I'm doing there. I'm feeling bready. I like it. Brave and ready. I'm feeling bready too. So let's do this. Okay, go ahead and get some white on your brush. We'll do a less important facet first. Not that all the facets aren't important, but we're going to start on this guy right here. And what you want to do is you can't use the geometry to help you out as much here. So you want to just make little ticky-tack, little capital letter I's, lowercase letter J's, and drag it down towards where things connect. Now you can see I didn't achieve good coverage. I'm okay with that. Just to get the line like semi where I wanted it with low coverage is fine, because I can always, I clean my brush off to get a nice fresh surface to work with, and then I repeat until I finally get the consistency I want on that, or until I finally get the opacity I want on that edge. I'm probably gonna need to do it at least one more time. I clean my paintbrush between each step of this. I am very fastidious about my brush, but it's just because I found these tricks to, having the perfect brush surface each time to be helpful to me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm kind of a fastidious person nonetheless, but I don't do it just because I want to. I do it for that. So there we go. The dark area is so dark for so long, it doesn't read as metal to you. That can be a danger if we don't have enough of the mid-tone in. But I'm going to, hopefully, we're going to get through this, and we're going to have some mistakes, and we're going to have some areas we don't like. And then I'm going to show you how to cheat a little bit and try to reclaim some of the blade and cover cover our painting sins a little bit. So, okay, now once we've done that facet, we're gonna wipe our brush off and we're gonna do the next facet.
That's Ian's autobiography, Reclaim the Blade.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, Sean, if you just messed up, hang in there with me, buddy. Just don't worry about it. This is one of the reasons why I love to weather all my non-metallic metal, because if I have an area I don't like on the blade, I just put a big old scratch through that area, and then we're good to go. It's like the ReaperCon class I need is Let's Line for 20 hours. I hear you. My new metal album. I like it. It'll be good. It'll be good. Okay, we'll get our white again. And guys, I don't even like doing this step after all the times I've done this. This is the one that causes me great heartburn and concern when I do it. But, you know, it's usually not as bad as I think it's going to be when it's all said and done. So now we've been saving the best for last, right? Now we got to really prove our bravery and do this edge. Actually, I was thinking the other day about a good metal name, but one that was like just cheesy enough to be a good metal name or metal band name. And I was like, it's always struck me as odd that like armadillos can be carriers of leprosy, but I mean, like, how metal is that? So I could have a band called like the Leprous Armadillos or something like that. Just weirdness there for you. That's the kind of thing I think about.
It's going to be called Armor Leprosy.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. Okay. Good thing we're taking a break here in a few minutes, because I gotta grab another roll of paper towels. I go through them like crazy.
Yeah, our food just got here, so.
Oh yeah. We're almost done with this blade, and then we're gonna go ahead and take like a 5-10 minute break. So hang in there with me. All right. Hold your breath. Well, actually, don't hold your breath entirely. We don't want anybody to pass out, but. But you might want to hold your breath a little, you know. Okay, that's okay. We got the first pass there. Phosphorescent lederhosen. I like that. I like that. That has to be like trying to think, a Euro electronica band. I like it. You guys can't make me laugh here while I'm trying to paint all steady. We're getting there. And I literally am half holding my breath here, so I'm sorry I'm not speaking at the moment. I do kind of like that technique for accurate, you know, shooting of rifles, where you take a half breath, or you take a full breath, let it half out, and then hold that half breath until you're done. So there we go. That'll work for us at the moment. Now, I think the highlight kind of exposes all the flaws in my blending. Well, don't worry, even I have flaws in my blending when I do this stuff. So that's what the next step is for. You guys ready to fix our sins here and to add some scratches to the blade? Let me grab another miniature for you, because I went to town on the scratches of this miniature's blade, and it turned out pretty good, I think. Basically, we're just gonna put some nicks. Now I probably went too many scratches on this guy's blade, but the idea is that what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our brown liner and we're gonna make a thin line, and then we're gonna make another thin line at the bottom of that line with our white. So we'll give that a try now here. And sorry, you guys probably can't hear me. Okay, another little trick here is that if we have any of those areas that we are that we're unhappy with, right, or our blends weren't very good, this is where we can take that spot where we've got a blend that we don't like right here. I'm not super happy with how my blend turned out. So I'm going to take my brown liner. I'm going to wipe most of it off on my thumb, and I'm just going to make a scratch right across that transition point. I'm going to grab a little bit more of the brown line. I'm just going to do a couple, 2, 3 scratches here. I don't like this area at all, so we'll do a couple scratches there. This is kind of rough. We'll do a little scratch there. And then I'm going to put one right there. It's going to be hard to see, but it'll show up when we do the rest of things there. And why not one more? Okay. Now we've got some of those scratches lined out here. Oh yeah, thank you there, Tammy. I hope that you can watch recording later and have some fun with it. Have fun at the family picnic here. Okay, now grab the white, put that on your brush, take most of it off, and what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to highlight. Actually, I'm going to flip the miniature over here for this. You're going to want to just do a thin line alongside the bottom of that line that you put in. You're probably going to need to reload your paintbrush with white several times during the course of this journey. And we put the white at the bottom of the scratch so that it looks, because if the scratch actually had a physical cross section to it, then the bottom of the scratch would be the side facing the sky, and so it would reflect the light. All right. Oops, I'm out of paint on my brush. Reloading. I always want to like in Call of Duty, like yell like changing mags as I'm like putting more paint on my brush or something like that. There we go. You know, the one thing I think that this sword really needs is I think it just needs a line of white on the bottom of this cutting facet. So I'm going to add that right now. Something like that. So at the end of the day, we could do a lot more blending. We could do a lot more smoothing. And maybe we could refine some things a little bit. But hopefully, this has given you guys the basics of how I approach my steel. Now, you can choose different colors here for all this. If you choose a lighter gray, it'll look a little bit different. If you choose maybe instead of going through blue, you go through a different color. I'm trying to think, where have I gone through a different color recently? I have to have gone through a different color recently. I use blue a lot for steel, but you can use just a lot of different color here. So, John, I feel like we have different swords. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is one that can really, you know, this sword is goofy and it can really be kind of challenged. And let's see, this is what we did last time I did the class. So when I did the class, and I put like some big fake cartoony blood on it there and everything. But when we did the class last time, we used a much brighter blue. So you'll end up with a different color there. And I used a different color shadow. And I probably didn't shadow it as much when I did this one here. How would you paint 2 slashes in an X? Let's see. Sean, congratulations on the level up there. And yeah, Petros, yeah, as long, like you said, as long as you know where you're going, that's great. And Matthew, same thing. How would you paint 2 slashes in an X there, Stephanie? Well, I did just that on the helmet of this dwarf. I'm gonna need to refocus it here. Okay, so on Mr. Dwarf, what you want to do is you want to paint the first slash and edge it, and then paint the second slash and edge the white over it, because really the one slash is going to have displaced some of the metal from the other slash, if that makes sense. So yes, Christina, the nicks, they hide our sins. We use the scratches for a very good effect there. So color choice wise, what is the difference between steel and silver? Not much. It just depends on how shiny you want to make it. And what we're going to talk about in the next section when we move on to how to paint the gold is kind of how you can change the the shininess of your object, what you're working on. So just by where you place the highlights and the shadows. So cool. All right, guys. I think the dry brush on thumb. Awesome. I'm glad that worked for you. That was such a big deal for me too. I was gonna kick I'm good buddies with James Wapple, and he always wears like cut off socks on his wrist, and then he just takes the paintbrush and colors over those there. So I thought that was great. So, okay, guys, can I set the mini out while on break? Yes, I can do that. Let me try to levitate it so it stays at the in focus level. Oh no. Okay, hopefully that helps a little bit. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I am going to really quickly get some more water because I'm essentially out of water here, and grab a cheese stick to keep my energy up for the second half of things. And I'll try to be back no later than 4:05, something like that. I just have to run down to my kitchen, and we'll restock the paper towel roll. So I'll see everybody here in a second.
Chat, while Ian is gone, I'll be here to answer any questions. If you want to put some questions in chat about ReaperCon or just Reaper in general, I'll be able to answer some questions. Where are the pics of my NMM? I've only painted one model, so. Caitlin Lineback says, how is your beard so magical? Quarantine beard, that's what I'm calling it. Michael, John, where were the pics? Oh, sorry, hold on. Caitlin says, where will the recording be? We have to talk to Ian, and I have to talk to the rest of the team here at Reaper and decide where or how we're going to distribute that. So, Corey says, John and all Reaper staff, thank you guys for an amazing. Thank you for flexing and making this happen. Yeah, it's been a lot of work. So stay tuned for the Future of Reaper panel. We'll be talking more about that later. One model. I thought Reaper had mandatory painting hour during the workday. That'd be crazy. A lot of people do take their breaks in the break room where we have a bunch of free paint for people to use. So people, a lot of the times, will paint in the break room during their lunch break and stuff like that. That's also where Paint Club is every Saturday. We haven't had Paint Club in a while due to the store being closed, but we've been having Paint Club over on the Reaper Miniatures Discord every Sunday from noon to question mark. Any news on the future of the Nethermall model? Ooh, that's a good question, Corey. Let me write that down. I know it comes up all the time, but it's kind of hard to nail things like that down. You'd imagine it. It's like eating pizza after making pizza all day. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. But sometimes you need a little bit break. Curious, how many people are in this class right now? Right now, there is a total of 202 of you. So, hello, all 202 of you. If anybody is just joining us, we are in the middle of a break right now. So, we're refilling our water and going to get some bathroom breaks and stuff like that. So, It's really great though, like doing these classes because everybody's painting along. So there's not a lot of questions in chat, unless somebody misses something or something like that. But everybody's generally just painting along, so there's no questions. So that's great. Aaron Killeen says, what is the range of attendance numbers for classes? That's a good question. We've been monitoring it. It ranges anywhere from 140 to like 210. It seems to be the average. Donna, can we watch these live streams? You can watch the Twitch ones, but this year we decided not to record the Zoom classes. Ian, before this, actually said that we could record it, so it all comes down to the artist, but out of generosity, or not generosity, but to be streamlined this year, we decided not to record any of the Zoom classes. Mm-hmm. Yes, Jeff Porch. He says, I love the live con, but for me, the online classes really help me my visual learning style. Yes, we're going to be talking about this for the future Reaper panel as well. It's one of the topics that we're going to bring up about how in the classrooms we're going to have these cameras, the same one that Ian's working on. It's called a document camera with maybe some TVs so people can generally see better in the classroom instead of all trying to huddle around the teacher and seeing what they're doing and having to like walk around and show each person. If you can do it underneath this document camera, it'll be easy to see a lot better and then get up and walk around and help with little things like the edging on the blade and the fading down into the midtones like he's talking about. Mm-hmm. Are the paints in the Brinewind box limited like the ones in the hobby box? No, the Brinewind box I believe is going to be for sale going forward. At least I think there's two of them, right? There's part 1 and part 2. Part 2 will be releasing on Black Friday. Will you folks take it into, okay, with the Zoom attendance being what they are, will you folks take into consideration so real life classes don't close out? That is a good point. We will be having a big ReaperCon follow-up meeting after this to talk about things like that. So if you guys have any suggestions, we're going to be opening up an email for people to send suggestions and comments and things like that. But it is something I am looking at, Julie, sorry. Rich Kuvillian, I do not know if there's a difference between the VZX and the VZR. I would have to ask Justin, our technical director, because I only know the IPVO stuff, so I don't know the differences between the two. Sorry, there's still construction going on, so I'm going to have to mute myself periodically. Will there be information packets for next year's sponsors/vendors? Of course. For future ReaperCons, I would be willing to pay for Zoom classes. Yeah, Nicole, we are talking about options and stuff like that. Here's a good question from Thomas. Gen Con has stated that they're thinking about doing both Gen Con and Gen Con online in the future. Do you think that Reaper might do the same? So we are talking about in 6 months doing ReaperCon virtual, and then the normal time that ReaperCon would happen in person, do an in-person ReaperCon. So every 6 months there's a online, in-person, online, in-person, and this will help with people around the world like UK, Australia that can't travel to ReaperCon because we know Labor Day weekend is a really busy weekend for other conventions and stuff. So that is on the whiteboard of ideas. So. I can't remember the name of the acid, Robert. I can ask Ron. I can ask Ed because he said it on the stream and I can't remember. Barry, it's coming pretty good. I've had to take a break because ReaperCon's so busy. So yeah, I will get back into it. Yeah, Tracy Barkley says, I was going to make it this year for the first time, but I am getting way more classes this way. Yeah, try not to burn yourself out. I know that a lot of people are going to be taking a lot more classes than they normally would. So just take it a little bit easy. I understand that we're not like walking around at in-person ReaperCon with the social aspect and everything like that. So I know that's way more tiring. Hmm. Ken Howard, do you think having 2 conventions a year will water down the content at all? I think teachers might change the content that they teach at virtual compared to in person. And I think it won't be burnt out because we'll have different teams working on different conventions. So I don't think it'll be that big of a deal.
2 conventions. Did I miss something?
We were talking about it's on the docket. So in 6 months from right now, we would do an online version of ReaperCon, and then we would do the in-person
Oh.
ReaperCon, and then 6 months after that, do a virtual. So you would get a virtual one at the beginning of the year, and an in-person one at the end of the year.
Oh, cool. Well,
So
yeah. So far, from the teacher's perspective, I've enjoyed this format. There, it's not quite the same as the in person because I can't give you guys all tips on your miniatures as you're working, but it's been enjoyable from my side. So
yeah, we
cool.
were talking about in the classes for the in-person ReaperCon having these types of cameras so, with a TV, so the students can see a lot better instead of having to crowd around and walk around and things like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that could work too. So cool. All right. Well, is everybody all refreshed
All right,
and
thanks everyone.
good to go here? Let's see. Oh, can I point out on the simple blade held held horizontal and vertical, how much white, how much gray? So there's no one answer to that. The more white and black you have and the less gray, the shinier it's going to look. The more of the mid-tone you have, the more dull it's going to look. And you can kind of pick and choose what particularly you're going for on each blade you are looking at. Let me grab that. Let's see. There he is. Okay. This guy again here. Hopefully you can see that there's, the gray is only this little area, and then we're going from the blue up to the white up here, and from the gray down to the black up here. And so in this case, almost half the, there's only maybe a quarter of the blade that's pure gray, and a quarter that's more blue, a quarter that's more white, a quarter that's more black. Kind of. Do I ever do minis with decorations on their blade? Not if I can help it. No, I'm just teasing. I always hate painting around the decorations on the blade. It's not the Lady Rulers of Hell blade. Yeah, you can work around decorations and things in the middle of the blade. Generally, you just do the exact same thing you're doing right now. I would say paint over the decorations as if they weren't there, and just blend the blade as normal, and then go in and put your liner color over each of the runes or something, or whatever, or the decoration, and then pick the decoration out afterwards. That's the way I found to do it there. Let's see. Would we paint a different shape, like a battle axe, the same way as the sword? Facets are curved / rounded versus straight. I've actually had really good success using the same technique on axes. Actually, in some ways, I feel like it works really well on the axes. I can grab an axe for you real quick here. It's nice to have the cabinet right behind me for this stuff here. So here's an actual axe, right? And then this would be more of a halberd there, but I've got the hook on the back and the different areas of the metal. And then this is not an axe, but you can see how it's just a kind of a goofy shaped sword blade. And we were able to get away with a lot on it. Sorry. The blades look better when they're not up against black or white underneath them, so they look shinier. So cool. Yeah, I was like, I don't know what I would call hers. Hers is like a weird, like, wannabe Urukai blade or something like that.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a tall machete.
Yeah, exactly. Oops. I bumped the escape button on my. Okay, that's what. All right. That's what happened. All right. Chat disappeared. There we go. I got it back. There you go. Okay. Ready to tackle gold? Oh, what would be the difference between the cell shaded style I seem to enjoy and a more realistic non-metallic metal? Unfortunately, I don't have a really good fast answer for you on that one. A more realistic non-metallic metal would just would tend to involve more light dark transitions closer space to each other is I guess the only way I can really describe that there. Scott asks, how do I keep my paints from getting chalky? I have this problem a lot. I found that tends to come from from kind of one of two sources. One of the main ways that starts to happen is if you're working on your highlights and you're really working your highlights back and forth, and you're not letting things dry before you move on to the next color, then you can really start ripping up the half-dried paint and you can create a texture on the highlights. And then that texture, when you try to paint over it, comes across as chalky. That's one of the main ways that can happen. And then alternatively, if you're primarily highlighting by mixing more and more white into something, the more white if you put too much white into it, you can start to make it, it can start to make it chalky. So try to use sparingly the amount of white you put in things there. How would I highlight non-metallic metal on a cylindrical object, like a spear or shaft or a needle-shaped object? Well, that's a good question, Christina. Why don't we do non-metallic metal on a more cylindrical object, like say his, basically like, let's say his bracer here, and then we'll give it a chance there. I'm so glad that NMM is starting to make more sense to some folks here. And like I said, there's many different ways to do this. Go watch like a dozen different YouTube channels and people will show like 20 different ways to do non-metallic metal. But see, one other thing I can show you here, right? Because this guy had has a lot of weird surfaces. Now, if you want something to look really, really, really shiny, you can do a line that is the horizon, right? And then you, so you could do a dark line that is the horizon and a white line above that horizon. And then you blend into like the sky, you blend into the dirt. You can do that exact same thing with any rounded object or any cylinder, even if you're not doing sky earth metallic, like sky earth non-metallic metal. You would just, instead of doing the ground colors, you would paint the black line here, the white line here, and then we would move up towards gray or down towards gray, either way. So yeah. Yes, higher contrast is the technique or is the strategy, the answer. With non-metallic metal, contrast is always the answer, right? So, what colors do I use for sky earth non-metallic metal? I make it up as I go most of the time. You kind of just need a bluish color if your sky is going to be blue, and you need a brownish color if your ground is going to be brown, and you need a white and you need a black, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, Squidmar. I love watching Squidmar's videos. You can watch some of his non-metallic metal stuff there too. I was watching somebody do like what he was calling it, Darren Latham style non-metallic metal. Many different things. Just like, I'm not claiming that the way I'm using right now is like a superior non-metallic metal technique, but I do like it, especially for beginners, because it is a fairly formulaic style. So if you can get a very formulaic style to work by following the formula, sooner or later you'll feel content. It's like, well, wait a second, why do I even need to stick to the formula at all? I understand the principles that underlie those formulas, and then you can go jump on to doing whatever other style of non-metallic metal you want to do. Cool. Okay. We're doing pretty well on the time here. Fortunately, as we move on to this next step, there are facets of this process that I don't need to cover again because they're exactly the same as what we did last time. Basically, I'm going to lay my paints back out in front of me here again so we can talk about where we're going to go. We're going to continue to use the brown liner. You know what? We could use Ancient Oak if we wanted to on this. Why not? Let's just throw it in there just to prove to you that it can be done. And then Linden White and Pure White. This is way too many colors for what I would normally do, but it'll just make our transitions easier because most things will be straight out of the pot instead of having to do as many mixes there. So Okay. Let's see. Peter asks, would your non-metallic metal technique work to make metallic paints pop more? Oh, sorry. I'm trying to clear my question answer here quick. I would say that, okay, so in the grand scheme of the world of metallics, you've got what, your true metallic metals, which are where you take actual metallic paints and you generally like glaze them down to add in shadows, and you kind of take that technique. Then there's your non-metallic metal, where no metallic paints are harmed in that process, and you just use contrast to make things appear metal. And then there's something that people call demi-metallic metal, which is where they try to take metallic paints and paint those metallic paints onto the object the same way we're using for non-metallic metals. I kind of feel that, this is just my personal opinion, if you love demi-metallic metals, please take no offense, but I feel that that takes the cons from both worlds and doubles down on them, instead of getting the pros from both worlds and mushing them together. So Christine asks, does using ancient oak on both help them look better on the same miniature? I would say generally yes. And in fact, when I do my dwarf, when I keep pushing him forward here, right? I used, because I got my Kraken ink there from I got Kraken ink from my Reaper box there. This is awesome blue purple color. I really liked it. I used that in the steel, so I'm going to go ahead and turn around and use it in like the bronze that's going to be like the rim of his shield and the hilt of his weapon there. So yes, very good question. Yes, Barry, please try demi-metallic metal. I don't mean to discourage anyone from trying it. That's just my personal take on I would either rather do true metallic metal or non-metallic metal instead of mixing the two, but give it a shot. Let me know what you think. Okay. All right. I think I'm caught up on the chat for the most part. Let's rock and roll here. So let's go ahead and, instead, for base coating the gold here, we're going to use a mix of woodland brown and golden yellow. So we're going to do a 50-50 mix of these colors as our mid-tone. Let me move everything else out of the way for you here. I always feel bad because I can like throw my wrist better on the right hand, so I always shake up paints better with one hand, but if I can't do both hands at the same time to the same shaking level. Okay, middle of the palette, 1 drop of woodland. If it's not clogged, it's clogged. So I will grab my, oh wait, I got it. No pokey tool necessary. All right. 1 drop. Boy, you can tell I haven't used this paint quite as much. It's not as shaken up. Okay. And then the golden yellow. Yeah, the paper clip works too, but I love my my skull pokey tools. Those are fun. Okay. We're good to go. So let's take that paint puddle, mix it up on our palette. I'm going to try to give myself more room and slide my other paints out of the way. Watering it down here a little bit. Mixing it all together. Yeah, that gives us a nice, bright yellow-brown. That'll work very well as a mid-tone. Okay. Cleaning off the brush. Joshua, yeah, I hear you. The paint pots make me angry too. Hey, Aaron, good to see you. Thank you. So.
Hi, Aaron. I hope you had a good class.
Mm-hmm. What was the mix again? Just 1 drop of woodland brown and 1 drop of golden yellow. So 50-50 there. Okay. Now, because it has such a nice geometry for us to practice things on, it's kind of like meeting plates with kind of a sharp cross section. We're going to go ahead and paint. Those are perfect for us to demonstrate on. Let's go ahead and paint our, I'm going to redo the focus here. There we go. Let's go ahead and paint this color on all that stuff. This is definitely going to require a couple coats. We have the time, we have the patience, we have the capability. Alrighty. Oops, I moved it off camera. There we go. Doing good there. And then to do like a definitely cylindrical object here. You know, how about I show you guys like an alternate way of doing this, and we'll do like the chest plate. You sound good? We could do the shoulder, but the shoulder is less exciting because the shoulder basically only paints towards the sky. So we're gonna do the chest. I'm gonna skip all that fancy neck guarding he's got there, even though from an armor standpoint, I appreciate that he's got something guarding his neck. We'll ignore the fact that his head is wide open, but his neck, nobody's gonna hurt his neck. There we go. Mine's a little chunky, I think probably because of the age of my paint, so I'm just going to add just a little bit more water to it. Yeah, which the Bones version has no nose. Well, yeah, so I'd probably just try to use some paint to make it appear like he has a nose, but he really has a relatively small demon nose going on at the moment. Terrible, right? Okay. Second coat. Okay. All right, moving along nicely. Yeah, it is from like one of the initial Bones runs there. Okay.
We have a question from Justin. It
Got it.
says, hold on, there's construction going on, so I have to mute sometimes. But it says, not to derail things, but what's your opinion on using metallics and NMM on the same metal, but not necessarily the same features, i.e. metallics on chainmail and NMM on the weapon or shield?
Just stop. Don't do it. No, I'm just, I'm just teasing. I think that if you're going to, now this is just my personal opinion, and I would encourage experimentation and everything else like that, but I would say commit to one or the other, and then you'll be happier with the result instead of doing some things one way and some things another way. They'll just, you'll be able to very easily tell. It's like, oh, this was different from this. Why? My buddy Rex Grange did that on a miniature one time, and that was one of his biggest regrets when he finished the miniature, because it was a big competition miniatures. He's like, man, he's like, some of these things I did metallic and some of these things I did non-metallic, and it serves to make them look odd in comparison to each other instead of accentuating things. Can I talk about, let's see, can I talk about rust effects and other metal weathering techniques? I have yet to find a technique that I am super happy with for rust, so I might have to defer on that question there. Other weathering techniques, like trying to think, if you want to do like iron oxide, like your, oops, your scale and stuff like that. That just kind of involves blending in some more darker colors there. So how do I do non-metallic metal on chainmail? Actually, I find NMM on chainmail pretty easy, pretty forgiving. For that, I would recommend that you look at the PDF from that orc painting guide we shared a little bit earlier. But basically, if you imagine that this circle is a ring of chainmail, I would paint the whole thing like gray or whatever your like your steel color is, and then I would wash the whole thing with like a dark black or with like a liner color or like a brown liner or something, and then that would cause it to pool in the center mostly. So you'll have like a gray donut with a black center. And then I would probably go back in and I'd grab the gray, the medium gray, and I'd make like a little half circle. And then I would go in and I'd grab the next lighter color and I'd make a smaller portion of the circle. And then I'd grab the next lighter color and make a smaller portion and smaller portion until I get down to the bottom. And then I have a little bit, just a little smiley face of white at the bottom, if that makes sense. Coverage for this base coat is not great. That is correct, but we'll work on that. Ren asks, how does the non-metallic metal gold triad compare to the colors we are using today? It would work fantastic for any of this stuff. In fact, I love the colors. I need to go get the production line of that. I have some very early stuff from Anne that she sent out to the artists for our opinion. And I loved the colors, but I wasn't fully in love with the coverage. So I want to see if the full release has a little bit better coverage, but I have zero gripes with the colors. In fact, I love them. I think that they're the right hint of yellow and brown together for the gold. So cool. Yeah, I wasn't sure where the Dungeon Dwellers PDFs moved to on the Reaper website, and I probably just haven't delved around as hard since the new website was launched. So, okay. Yeah, and Dean, thank you for.
I'll put the link in chat.
Awesome. Oh, thank you. Yeah, because you can see how many you can like go look at. So I'm painting, this dwarf, right? But I think you should be able. So this is how I'm painting it, but you should be able to find the same dwarf. I can't remember if it was Rhonda or Michael that painted up the studio model of this one. But go find that Dungeon Dwellers guide and see how they painted it. And
I think it was Rhonda.
Rhonda, yeah, that's what I thought too. And if it, and I know Rhonda did that big human plate mail fighter. Go look at how she did that because she did some non-metallic metal there too. That's really interesting there. So cool. Okay. All right. We've got our base color, right? Now what do you think we need to do? Well, we need to sketch in our light and our dark, just like we've been doing. So we'll go back to our palette. We'll grab our brown line and we'll grab not our pure white. Remember, the pure white is only for the highest, the shine step. So we'll put down our brown liner so that I don't have to break out the tube. Again, I'm going to just put down my single drop that I'll use to mix with later. And then I'm going to grab out my linen white. Put some of that down here. Now we're going to do a little bit different technique that's going to make the NMM look a little bit shinier when we do it on that, when we do it on his gauntlet. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of define like a little bit of that horizon line. Don't forget to mix some water into these paints just like we've been doing, just as your base coat continues to dry on the miniature. All right, the linen white is good to go. My brush is getting better with each passing minute. We're finally getting it to behave here for us. Okay, let's grab the white. Take most of it off on your thumb. And let me make sure the focus is still good. Yeah, I think that works. And what I want you to do is I want you to paint a line running down the center of the gauntlet. You have to go through, you have to do it a couple times in order to make sure that you get full opacity. All right, okay. Oops, sorry, I started drifting. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. I'm actually going to refocus. There we go. Okay. So I want you to line out the center of things. Sorry, did I do a mix? No, this is just the pure linen white that I'm using right now. The only mix that I used was 50-50 between woodland brown and golden yellow, and that was my base coat. We could have used either, but this is just how we decided to do it. If we don't have the same mini, but we have something where plates are stacked vertically, would we change the direction of the line? Okay, so that's a hard question to answer without having the miniature in front of me to see. But what I would say is, if you have any type of, like, if you go find, like, a lot of miniatures boots have like that, a lot of miniatures boots have like that almost triangular appearance to them, where it's like a flat plate that comes up to a point, then you get another flat plate that goes down from there. How about you just work on the boot as if it was the gauntlet, if you've got that or something, and just, the important thing is just, if you take a rounded object or an object with sharp plates like that, just make a white line down the center of it. We could even do it on his shoe here. Is it the very middle, the point, or above the point? Good question, Christina. So the answer is that if the very center is the ridge, I am painting just on the upper side of that ridge. Yeah, sorry I didn't make that clearer. Good question. Yes. Truth be told, since I'm going to go in with the darker color here in a few seconds and refine what I've got here, it doesn't much matter, but that's the ultimate goal, is for you to come close to, or to occupy the upper side of that ridge. Yeah, sounds good there, Brandon. Let us know how it goes there. So let's see. And hopefully I have answered those. Okay, good. So in your boot example, it would have to be a vertical line instead of a horizontal line, right? Yeah, if we're working on like the boot here, just, okay, this is not how you would do a boot, but we're trying to use the boot as a replacement for our for what we're doing here. So yeah, you would just draw a line down the center of the foot there. And we're going to pretend that it's actually, you know, a gauntlet or something, and it is horizontal to the ground there. If I was actually going to do the boot, I would do one of these lines on the side, and then I do another line on the other side, and it's just that's not a very satisfactory answer for me. So I'm sorry about that, but yeah, just draw a line down the center. Okay, then you're free to do the chest piece along with me if you want, but I'm going to do a slightly different technique on this. So we're going to take the center of the chest plate, and I'm just going to do a big old wiggly line just to block in some lighter color. And then I'm going to go down one step further, and I'm going to just block that in, block that in, block that in. And then I'm going to go over to the other side of his armor. I'm going to do essentially the same thing. And block it in, block it in, block it in, block it in. All right, working with me. Oh, you have a vertical gauntlet. That's a let's just pretend your vertical gauntlet is horizontal for the moment. If we can do that, that makes sense there. Okay, I got to hit that again just because I got to actually get some opacity here. Yeah, something like that. That'll work well enough for us to get started with. Okay, Now we put in our highlight here, right? Or we put in our sketched out highlight. Go ahead and grab your brown liner and we'll put in our sketched out shadow. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw in the horizon. So you're going to draw a line of the brown liner that directly touches that white line and defines the side. Now, by having this line of light and dark, instead of kind of the smooth transitions that we were using where only the geometry of the weapon was causing us to have transitions, this is going to look like a shinier metal because it's going to look like it's a more strongly reflective surface. Okay, so we put that in there. Is that line under the edge? Yes, but remember they're going to come up and perfectly join each other at the edge. That's what you want to have happen. Okay, now while we've got this out, I want to show you how to deal with plates like this and everything. So go ahead and line your plates. So here, I'm not messing around with this stuff outside here. I'm just going to mush some brown liner in there. All this brown liner that I'm mushing around like the sides is just so that we successfully get a good contrast. Non-metallic metal can look a little goofy if like the whole miniature is like really bright around it, because then suddenly your paint on the metal doesn't look that bright in and of itself. So not sure if that makes sense, but typically my non-metallic metal will look better and better as I finish more of the miniature around what I'm working on. So, okay, we got to finish lining those panels. So, there we go. If your lines are too thick, don't worry about it. We're going to be able to go in and clean it up as we work on the rest of the piece there. Okay, now let's go ahead and first of all, I'm not messing around with the area around this. I just want to have some darkness. It's like, hello, darkness, my old friend. All right. I won't hurt your ears by singing. My wife has musical talent, but I can't sing at all. So.
Did you hang around for karaoke last year?
I did not catch the karaoke last time. My brother lives in Austin, Texas, just moved down there. So I've been getting out pretty early on Sundays so that I can run down and spend Labor Day with him and his family real quick. But so I think if the karaoke was Sunday, I think I missed it this last time.
I think it was late Saturday night chat, I think.
Oh yeah. Then with that, I'm always giving feedback to people after the competition. Saturday. And then there was the gummy bear painting last year. That was hilarious. That was really funny. We were painting on actual gummy bears.
I think we're doing that again this year too.
Oh, that was hilarious. It was great. All right, this is just to give us a palette to work with here, right? And now, because he's got, he's a demonkin, so to speak, he's got to have very sharply defined abs. That's just how they work, right? So we're gonna paint down the center there and go with that. It's happening on Monday. Ha, that's great. Okay. Well, this year I was too tired after all the competition and all the talking to everybody to give my all to the gummy bears this last time. So maybe I'll have to come back and achieve gummy bear vengeance. So, okay. I'm going to go back to here, And I'm going to grab my linen white and I'm going to just correct a little bit of my very chunky overboard lining from earlier. Everybody following me so far? Hopefully we're in that, we're in a good position there. Okay, not bad. Now we've sketched. What time is it? Oops, I forgot. I gotta line those.
Wait, did you ask what time it was?
I meant I was teasing like the, you know, like the pizza time thing, but I was hoping somebody was going to say it's blending time. There we go. All right. Thank you guys. Thank you. All right. I just needed a second for the chat to roll in. That's right. It's blending time. There we go. I always get it whenever I'm painting like a demonkin or a dark elf or even thinking about doing such. I always, I'm a big fan of the Blood Bowl tabletop game and the online game. And one of the guys I used to watch playing it, Total Biscuit, he would joke about the dark elves and their pale, sickly abs uniforms on the for playing football in. So I can't help but think of that. I work on these. All right, there we go. All right, like I said, does it look good right now? No, it looks very bad, right? But that's okay. It's non-metallic metal. That's what it's supposed to look like at this step. We're going to eventually bend it to our will here. No brown liner adjacent to the highlights on the chest. Nope, we're doing our chest a little bit different. Folks have been asking about putting, you know, highlights in the center of things, and I just wanted to show you how you can do that. So also, it could be hammer time as well. It's hard to say. Time to make the donuts. I like that. Clobbering time. I always appreciate the thing. For larger miniatures or larger surfaces, how would you handle the underside of the chest plates? I would probably still just line it. One of the best pieces of miniature painting, and just make it completely dark. One of the best pieces of miniature painting advice I ever got was from Michael Proctor. He's like, if you can't see it, then it's probably not interesting on the miniature. Just make it dark and call it a day. So, cool. All right. Go back to your paint. Now, this is going to be ever so slightly harder for us to do my super fastidious blending because I used basically because I used a mix in the center. So what I'm going to do this time around is I'm going to take my woodland brown, right? And I'm going to make a woodland brown dot here. And I'm going to put a drop there for blending. Getting rid of that paper towel. And then I'm going to grab my ancient oak. Put that down right here. And then a drop for blending, a drop for blending. More paper towels. Okay, we'll put some water into it. And now, once again, we're going to work from the dark to the midtone. Once again, that's just the direction that I decided to go with this. There's nothing, you could work in the opposite direction, but generally since the shadows are harder to reach, it's nice to start with them first. There we go, getting that ancient oak already. With all these lights I've got going here, it tends to dry out my paints on my palette a lot faster than when I'm painting without 40 million lumens of power. There we go. Now, just looking at this, I can already tell that this and this, they are not going to blend happily together. So or they shouldn't. We might be able to get away with the fact that there's a, with your yellows and your light browns like this, there's a little bit of coverage difference, but I'm just gonna admit defeat right off the bat and mix those two together to create an intermediate color. Yes, correct on the color highlights. The left three dots. Okay, remember I always use top line is pure colors, bottom line is 50/50s. So I just grabbed woodland brown instead of doing the mix this time. This is woodland brown. This is ancient oak. This is brown liner. This is the half and half between these two. This is the half and half between these two. And then this guy is a half and half between these guys. So mine turned into a green. That's correct. It should. It should. It should. So don't sweat that. We're gonna, we'll just see how it works on the palette here. So, all right, I'm gonna start with the underside of this. What we want to do is we want to end with our base coat showing at the very bottom here. This is going to simulate. It's going to be lighter on the very bottom where it's reflecting light from the ground. So go ahead and grab your 50/50 mix of brown liner and ancient oak, and kind of pull, reach into that brown liner just a little bit and pull things down a little bit. There's a little bit of that fancy detailing on his armor. I'm not going to get too bent out of shape about that. I'm just going to block it in with some liner real quick. Okay. So still working with the 50/50 brown liner, ancient oak. You can just do little wiggly lines, or you can draw things down towards the mid-tone. Once again, you want your transition lines to be parallel to the ground to sell them the best. The camera is adding a lot of blue to try to balance the yellow out. Yes, yes, that is, actually tends to add a little bit of purple, so to speak, right? Because if you think about your color theory, what's the opposite of your yellow? The opposite of your yellow is purple. So it's going to, my understanding is it's going to try to throw a lot of purple in there to balance things out. So don't get too hung up on exactly what you see on my palette. Just look at the spatial side of things to hopefully help you keep things straight. Hopefully, as long as we got good color fidelity here, that's what I am most worried about. All right, grab your ancient oak. And do a little bit of a wiggly line, pull down towards the base coat. Having these stronger colors that are not your main colors of your non-metallic metal in there can really add some life and some vibrancy to your non-metallic metals and make it look like you're actually reflecting something in that character's environment instead of just being, grayscale. All right, now we're gonna grab our 50/50 ancient oak and woodland brown. Take a bunch off on our thumb as always. And do a little wiggly line. We got this, weird, almost green ochre color going on right now. But it's working well. It's working well. Blending okay for us. So the bottom won't go all the way to white, William asks. That's correct. We could edge highlight it later, but with a lot of, so whenever I'm doing like a rounded surface or something where I define the horizon, I try to leave the horizon as the only thing as light that gets to pure white, but we get lighter as the ground light reflects off of things. All right, now I'm going to grab that little intermediate mix we made between our 50/50 ancient oak and woodland brown and between our woodland brown, and I'm going to try to wiggly line here. Oops, sorry, I'm probably blocking too much of your light. At least, unlike in an actual class environment, nobody can kick the table on us by accident. That's always, that happens, at least twice every class that I'm a part of, is that I or somebody else accidentally bumps the table and causes a whole line of class attendees to gasp. Now I'm going to grab the pure woodland brown, and I'm going to use just the final wiggle line to transition us back into our original midtone. And hopefully now we have a nice color gradient getting us all the way back to the midtone. Now, let's apply that on the chest piece here too, but we're going to have very, very, very limited space to apply it in. So when we do it now, there's no way in the world that I'm going to get through all these colors that I've got on my palette. So for the most part, I'm just going to try to like grab the green, and then I'm going to try to like use these three maybe to make things work for me. So this is a major test of your blending skills. So if you struggle with this, do not sweat it, and just keep practicing your blending there a little bit. But I'm gonna just add a touch of the green. And this time I'm not able to pull in the direction of the shadows. I just don't have enough space. All right, added some of that green there. Now I'm going to grab my 50/50 ancient oak and my little woodland brown there. And I'm going to just do the faintest little touch of that on the edge of things. This time I'm going to pull towards the shadow a little bit because I have a little more ability to get away with that. And I got to take almost all of it off on my thumb. Okay. We're going to try to get back to our midtone. We'll see if it occurs. What colors are we using on the chest since the smaller area? Since it's a smaller area, I don't think I'm not going to have enough room. It's going to be like an exercise in futility to cover all of them. So I already have this. So just jumping straight to this is not that bad in the small area we have. And then I'm going to try to use these guys to get me back towards my middle color. If I take enough off on my thumb, I should still be able to tint things enough to blend them, even if the blends are not perfect. I think that's going to be enough to work with for the moment. It's going to start looking better once we do everything else. And you know what? I'm going to shade the edges of his chest plate over here too. Go ahead and grab that little intermediate mix between our 50/50 ancient oak and woodland brown and our woodland brown itself, and drag stuff towards the edge of the chest plate here. And I'll do the same down here, and we'll just do a little bit of it down here. This is more like what I was doing on the rounded surfaces of my dwarf there. When I can breathe again, because I'm not doing fine detail work, I'll talk. 1 second. All right, that'll work well enough for us for the moment. I'm going to go back in now with my my 50/50 ancient oak and woodland brown, and I'm going to move even farther towards the edges. At this point, you're almost just doing little tiny dabs, more so than anything else. It's small enough the eye is going to naturally help you blend it. There we go. And then I'm going to grab my ancient oak. It's hard to see on camera. Are you painting each plate or the whole breastplate as one? I'm painting the entire or sorry, I'm painting each plate one at a time as I do this. But since I'm painting them all in the same way, I'm kind of just moving my brush smoothly down along the line there. I have lost my base color. Yeah, that's easy to do. If you've lost your base color, we'll go in and put it back in. In fact, I might have to do that in a second here. So if you've lost your base color entirely or mostly, just take your base color and give yourself a little wiggly line of base color. Like I especially kind of started to lose it right there, so I'm going to put it back in. This area I didn't leave myself any space, so I'm going to try to put it back in a little bit. Just kind of try to put it back in. I, Christina, am actually a Packers stockholder. I have my one Green Bay Packers stock because I was born in Wisconsin myself. I got my cheese heads over there, everything. Yeah, awesome, awesome. That's great. Okay, let's see. Are you putting woodland brown on the mini as a transition color at all? Yes, as best I can. What colors are we using on the chest and smaller area? We're trying, or sorry, I answered that one already. Okay, so if, oh, Patrick, sorry, I missed your question. That was accidental there. If you had a shield that was wood in the center with an outer frame of metal, what technique would you use on the metal frame? Oh, okay, I follow your question. I follow your question. I think I do this once again on that orc in the PDF there because he has a steel rim to his wooden shield. So basically, you know how I talked about how you did the chainmail and you kind of just do smaller and smaller little half circles? If you've got just a rim of a metal color, then I would paint the whole thing like the gray, and then I would make smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller half little arcs until you get to the highest highlight. So hopefully that covers your question there. Okay. All right. Now let's do it. We've done the shadow. Let's do the highlight. Ready for this? Now on gold, I actually find the highlight to be relatively easy as compared to the steel. So hopefully we'll be in good shape here. So this time we're going to get out, and I should have moved this to the right. I don't know why I put it right there. I'm going to run myself out of space, but here's my golden yellow, and we'll have a, I probably don't even need a mix color here because the yellows cover so poorly that they're actually easy to blend because they tint things long before they cover things opaquely. So grabbing out my pale saffron. I was so glad that this got re-released as a bones color here too. Doot, doot. There we go. Oops, that's too much water. We don't need that much. We need water, but we don't need that much water. Okay. All right. Watering things down a little bit. Yes, it ends up being a very clean and orderly path. Oh, hey, Michael, how's it going? Mm-hmm. And so. I always end up with a ton of little tiny dots all over the place, and then I run out of space, and I have to try to start squeezing other colors in between the in between everything there. Almost through watering everything down here. All right, that might just work for us. We'll give it a shot. We'll give it a shot. Actually, like I said, I think that these colors have a fair chance of blending for us with relatively little heartache as compared to what we've been going through. Get some kind of well, I'm glad. Hopefully it's been exciting for you there, Michael. Get some kind of crazy rainbow mess, says David, like a unicorn sneezed on it. Ooh, well, that's a possibility there. Yellow and pink are my paint color enemies. Yeah, yellow's grown on me, but I didn't enjoy it too much at the very beginning. So even now, it can cause some challenges. So let's do the bracer here because it's just going to be easier to understand here. Let's go ahead and grab our pure golden yellow and go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. What in the world am I doing? No, put your golden yellow back. Put your golden yellow back. Use your 50-50 mix between your linen white and your pale saffron. I am so sorry. Yeah. Let's grab your 50-50 of your linen and your pale saffron. I needed like Jack Porkins over there from Star Wars. It's like, stay on target, stay on target. There we go. It might take a few coats of this one to achieve maximum opacity, but we're getting there. Remember, you're pulling from your highlights farther up onto the armor plate here. Once you've finished with that color, now you'll grab your pure pale saffron. And ideally, you'll apply it a little bit better than I did right there. Let's see. I'm not liking that little filigree there again, so I'm going to fill it in at the moment, and then we can redefine it as we paint. All right, that should work. Okay.
Aaron Hartwell's here too.
All right.
Aaron Hartwell's here too.
Yeah, we got. It's always. It's. I had like Bryce joining me in my first days there too. It's nerve-wracking to have all the other instructors joining your classes because I gotta do a good job or my peers will shun me forever. Right? That's how this works. I'm teasing. They're all the Reaper instructors are super awesome folks there. There we go. We're slowly making it happen. Michael, well, it's succeeding. It's succeeding. I'm just teasing. It's all good. Let's see. Yeah. And yeah, got the whole bus going. Yeah, oh, yeah, Patrick. I remember, Michael helping me get my paint palette set up when I was just a first time Reaper attendee back in 2012, and he took the time to sit down and and we're using the 50-50 golden yellow and pale saffron at this point. Sorry. He took the time to sit down with me and help me get my first setup of Reaper paints, and I still use those to this day, and that was just such an awesome thing to get help from him. And then Rhonda showed me how to blend by basically the technique that I still use to this day, that very first convention, and it has helped make the hobby what it is for me today. All those guys, they're kind assistants there. There we go. Let's see. And now we're going to grab the golden yellow. Sorry, here I'm trying to use up too much. I don't have enough RAM in the mental computer to do all the blending and talking and everything at the same time. So this is just the golden. Little wiggly line. And we're pretty close to a smooth blend at that point. Now, before I move back onto the chest piece, we're going to do something very similar to what we did last time. So I'd like you to break out your pure white, put a drop of that on the palette, and then we're going to use that pure white to really take this from relatively smoothly blended flat plates to shininess. So go ahead and grab a little bit of water into that white. Remember, it's better to aim on the side of a little too thick with this white edge highlight than it is to aim on the side of a little too thin. First thing first, I'm going to grab some of that white, take most of it off on my thumb, and I'm going to define the central spine of his gauntlet here. Or this isn't a gauntlet. What is this? Term is escaping me at the moment. Bracer? Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you. And then this, it's okay for it to be actually like on the point of the bracer. Congratulations, Gregory. It's fun when it sticks there for you. Let's see. Okay, now grab that white again. And let's edge each of these plates. These are more defined geometrically than a lot of the things we were working with on the sword, so hopefully you guys are finding this one a little bit more forgiving for you as you edge everything. It's helping add a little bit of that shine there. Yes, vambrace too. That's another. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Okay, but we need to extend the shine down into the darker parts of things in order to really make it come to life. So extend that shine. I'm gonna need a second coat, some of that stuff. Forearm cover thing. Yes. Ah, thank you, Gary. Yes, that makes sense. You know, so one of the, while I'm painting, I like to listen to YouTube videos and stuff like that. In addition to music is kind of the go-to a lot of the times. But if I want to listen to, you know, something not music, I really like Matt Eastham's channel, Scala Gladiatoria, and just learn a little bit about medieval weapons and stuff like that. It's, any of you have never heard of his channel before, I really like Matt. I think he does a good job there. So now I'm rushing this a little bit, so I should be more careful naturally, but I'm not. But there's the general idea. Now, what I would do at this point is I'd probably go and, you know, normally clean up the blending, clean up the lines a little bit more, and then you probably would reach the point where you find areas where you didn't transition very nicely, and then yes, Bottom of the plates, you can, but I would probably use like the linen white instead of the pure white on the very bottom of the plates if you wanted to do it that way. Yeah. Yes. That's awesome. Yeah. Matt's HEMA videos are exciting there as well. Uh, non-metallic metal on a bust. Yes. So, yes, you can use them on a larger surface area. It becomes increasingly tough because the more area you have to cover with this, the better and better and better your blends have to be. And I think that for a lot of busts, true metallic metal really, really shines. Pun intended there. There. So, if you were to do the hilt of the sword, how would you set up the shadow and highlight? That's a little bit of a thinker here. Let's here. Let me finish the vambrace entirely, and then we can talk about that. That was a good one. So, what would I do to further this? I'd probably just continue to refine the lines. If this would be a great opportunity to say, hey, I didn't like how I did my a certain transition. It's like, well, lo and behold, I bet he's got some authentic battle damage, you know, right, right there or something. And then you would do the same thing we did on the sword, and you'd go through and grab some white and line the bottom of that. Now, normally I would like to, you know, take my time with these and more make these lines a little thinner, so they look a little sharper and more like scratches, but for purposes of the class, this we'll just keep it moving here. Something like that. Oh, sorry. It helps if it's on camera. Something like that. We could keep doing it further there. Yellow and white. Let's see. With the yellow and white, I would do the black for the bottom of the scratch. So like your brown liner for the bottom of the scratch, then the white for your scratch shine, if that's what you're talking about. Yes, battle damage for bad transitions there. Oh, how do you do battle damage on the ship? Sorry, I didn't read your comments in the correct order there, Michael Campbell there. What I would do is I would actually still just do the black line, and then I would do the white line underneath it. And then you could transition them over there. So on camera, it didn't happen. Sorry, was I, here, I'll try that again there for you guys there. My bad. I'll put one right here. There we go. There we go. Cameron, with regard to gold being a little easier, I would say that by and large, because of the colors involved in gold, instead of having to go so much through the grayscale, that gold can be a little bit more forgiving, I guess. There we go. All right. All right, but we've only just done the vambrace now, right? Everybody's excited to see the chest piece. So let's do, at least I hope you're excited to see the chest piece instead of just like, oh, here Ian goes again, right? So go ahead and take your 50-50 of your pale saffron and your linen white. And now, once again, we have to be very controlled with things. My camera's out of focus. It can help my blending there too, right? That's I can cheat that way. Nothing, nothing too unique for me to say at this point that hasn't been said already. Just keep doing the little wiggly lines on the edges of the colors. Add in some more of that yellow. Let me refocus for you because I'm holding them up a little higher. There we go. And although you can't see it here, I've got like my whole arm on my painting desk, and my arm is flat. Everything is like locked in place so that I can't, uh, or so that I'm as steady as possible when I'm working on all this fine detail stuff. There we go. At this point, it looks more like brass than gold. Yeah, so honestly, your color choice kind of determines which one it ends up looking like. If you go a little more brown, it looks a little more gold. If you go a little more yellow, it looks a little more brass. If you go a little more red, it looks a little more copper. Or if you will go a little more green, it can look a little bit more like bronze. It's just you've got some options there for everything. Ah, I got you there, Rich. Yeah, if you've lost your midtone, do your best to go back in and just wiggle line some midtone in areas. I'm going to get very close to losing my midtone, if not actually doing so myself here. So I'll try to have to show you how it works. What's that hair doing on my brush? It's splitting off. Get back in there. Thank you. We're getting there. Hold my breath here. Sorry. Okay. Getting close. Getting close. Thanks, dear Michael. Let's see. Okay. Let's grab your, this is your 50/50. Actually, we don't have enough space for that. Just grab your golden yellow, your pure golden yellow. Little majestic wiggly line. Oh, it's starting to happen. Like Hannibal says in the A-Team, I love it when a plan comes together, right? Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And we're almost there. All right, I lost a little bit of my midtone in places, so I'm going to grab my midtone. I'm going to wipe most of it off on my thumb, and I'm just going to try to push it back in. A little bit of a wiggly line business in here. You can say, get back in there, midtone. You can give up when I give you permission, right? Okay. Little rough. I'd go back in and refine the blends even more, but you ready to truly make this look golden, shiny awesomeness? Go ahead and grab your pure white. Grab your pure white and literally draw a line in the center of the shine. And there you go. Gotcha there, Joshua. Yeah, it's hard because a lot of NMM is just about blending, and so it's one of those deals where I've had a lot of practice with the blending, so don't sweat it if you're if like it seems I have more space to make these transitions, because you'll get to that same point with just a little bit more blending practice on your own there. So okay, and Bill, I have not forgot your question about the hilt of the sword. Okay, so I did a little bit, but I haven't fully forgotten it, so thank you for your patience there. So okay, that is one way that you could do all of that, is just you have nice even color transitions and you have sharp white lines in the middle of things there. Depends on what type you're going for. This type would be a little bit more highly reflective. This, sorry, I take it. This is going to look like it's showing the horizon a little bit more. This is going to look like it kind of doesn't care and is maybe a little bit more satiny at the end of the day. So that's okay. Hilt of the sword. Oh boy, I've never thought about that with this one before. This is not a a fun sword hilt there. Oh, how would I have shown the horizon in the chest plate? So one way that you could have done it is, instead of having a single white line through the center, I would have had one horizon line running down this side of the chest, one horizon line running down this side of the chest near the very edge, and then I would go towards middle, and then I'd have another horizon line here and another horizon line here. So you'd have like dark here, a line of light blending towards yellow in the middle, a line of light, a dark horizon line. Mine's the size of the frost giant. I like that. So Bill, to answer your question on the sword hilt, because this is a complicated sword hilt, I would probably take my I'd probably take my lights, and I'd make it light up here, and then I would take my brown liner and I would make it dark down here. And I would treat the whole thing like it was just one big, like one big flat plate. And then I would have my my mid-tone would be here, and I would go from the light to the mid-tone and from the mid-tone to the dark, and try to handle things like that. So, okay. So with that, I've kind of demonstrated several different things there for you all, and we've got about a half hour left in the class. What more would you like to know? What more would you like to ask? What can I maybe talk about there? So no outlining on his chest. So because his chest is like concave there, we could outline the bottom of these. We just have to be careful that we don't eat up all the black. I'd probably leave these alone. But if he had if his plates were the other way and you could get to the top of the plate, I'd probably line that. How would you highlight and shade the shield? Oh, I knew somebody was going to ask me that. I don't like the shields. Oh, man. Suspenders. I like that. Would the shoulder pads be... Oh, let's talk about the shoulder real quick. I'm gonna dodge the here real quick. I'm going to dodge the shield question here for a little bit longer because it's tricky. Let's see. Just don't let me forget about the shields before this is all said and done, okay? That shield is so big, it would take me like 2 hours to sit here and do it. Yeah, I like it. The shield is wooden. That's how I do the shield. I would define the shield as a different material. That's exactly what I would do. Shield scares you. It's flat. How would you do it? Okay. So, one, I probably would have his shield painted instead of just doing metal because that is really hard. Two, I've done it in the past a little bit. This needs a lot more blending, but you could, the idea would be I would kind of just do everything that we've been doing. Is I paint the light line, I paint the dark line, and I'd kind of try to do, this needs a lot more help with the color transitions, but I might do something like that if it's so flat. Don't be weak yet. Oh, Ken, you're right. You're on to me. I might have to be weak here. +1 for the shield. Okay, let's see. How do we tackle a dome shape, such as the pauldrons in a space marine or heavy armor wearies? Thanks there, Ken. I do need the kick in the butt on this. Wells, I've attended both your classes and learned a lot. The most intriguing thing is the colors used. I have been painting the same amount of time and had not thought of using the colors demonstrating. I've always stuck to black and white, dark yellow to white. Oh yeah. You know, just for resources for mini painting color uses, I'm gonna slaughter his name here, and I don't intend to, but it's like Marco Frazzoni or something like that on YouTube. Like he's kind of one of those that can just like splash paint everywhere and like use all different colors to bring things out. Otherwise, go watch James Waffle. James is actually perfect for this there. So oh yeah, and actually, yeah, Michael helped me out with this a lot too because I was pretty. He helped me through a time period in my painting where I was sticking to a triad plus white and black, and it was really kind of showing in a very like all the pieces of my miniature looked very distinct from each other, and just go into his like his color theory class and learning that it was okay to splash different colors in different areas and that we could make it work. That's really the trick, is just having the confidence to say I can put any color anywhere, and as long as I do like a little bit of blending, you can make it look good there. Let's see. Yes, Sean, at some point you've just got to look at how much mini real estate you have and decide how many blend steps are going to fit, right? I usually well, I guess I should say I look at a miniature and the more real estate I've got, I know I'm going to need more blend steps, but it's very hard to predict from the beginning how many you'll need there. Let's see. Yes, okay. Let's see. If you do a painted shield and wanted nicks in it, how would you show that? Okay, so I'm working on that as we speak with the dwarf, right? So my dwarf here, I painted a shield, gave him just like a simple design, and you see all these like black lines here, right? What I'm eventually going to do with these is when I paint the rim of the shield like bronze and everything, I'm going to go back in and I'm going to paint a little bit of the base color in the middle of each of these nicks, and then kind of try to do like little lines of non-metallic metal in there. So, yeah. How would you tackle a copper color scheme? A copper color scheme would be tackled by taking similar colors, but using a little bit more red than anything else there. Basically, actually, one piece of advice I would give you is to go, in this case, just go look at metals. I am a metallurgist by trade, so I know the metals that make up your different alloys. Like brass is copper and zinc, right? So you've got your copper, which is kind of that brownish red color that we're all familiar with, but then zinc is silver, so you put those together and it pushes things more towards the yellow shine. But like copper, when it corrodes, is green. It can be green. It can be a variety of colors, but it can be green. So if you want to sell bronze, which is copper and tin, right? You can just take some of that green from the copper corrosion and put it in there, and it will look really nice on it. Alternatively, if you want your copper to look newer, if you can make it slightly more reddish than yellow, it will help distinguish it from brass or gold anything like that there. Hopefully that helps there. And then let's see. Oh, sorry. I was starting on that shoulder pad and then I got distracted. Let's do that real quick. Where can we go to watch the recording of the class later for reference? Adam, I need to talk with John about that there. We just got to figure out where we want to put that there. Any advice on colors for a black metal? Well, I would, so what music you listen to while you paint your metal will change whether it's, I'm just teasing. Colors for a black metal, basically if you actually just do it extremely dark gray with mostly black and then go up to and then only leave a little bit of space to make that transition from your dark gray to your light, that'll help sell it as a black metal. Yeah, so if you do that copper dragon, you will be, by the time you are done with that dragon, you will be a pro with that much area to paint. So okay, real quickly here, doing this pauldron, right? Oh, his sword is dead in the way. I would say maybe this is the horizon line here on this side, and then on the other side, this is the horizon line. Oh, one thing I usually say in my classes I didn't do a good job of saying this time is that people tend to think that there's some magic related to like the right area to pick for highlight or the right area to pick for shadow. For the most part, that's not true. As long as you pick one surface to be like your shiny surface, like we did with the sword, and then kind of work your way and say, oh, the surfaces next to it have to be dark and the surfaces next to that have to be light. As long as you pick one and are consistent with how you apply things, for the most part, the eye is going to be like, yeah, okay, cool. It's good. It's good. Okay. So we apply. So now we got to get in our, oh, darn it. There's more. Stupid little jagged piece of decoration. It's messing me up there. Okay, so draw in your horizon. Do the same thing back here. And now blend. Blend like the wind. Now, what if that sword was a torch? Now you guys are just being mean. We're not, okay, it's like, I'm just teasing. OSL on non-metallic metal gets to be a whole nother level. I wouldn't say I'm an expert on that. I have tried it a little bit in the past, but I just try to, instead of using purely the whites for the highlights, I use whatever the OSL color is instead of like my white. What if your surface is large and flat? Do you just invent lights and darks? Yes. Yes. As long as you pick something consistent and go with it, yes, that will work. So now how do I blend the top of that? You mean the pauldron that I'm working on? Hopefully I can do it for you here real quick. Let's see. I'm going to try to, this is, we're going to do some speed blending here. I would say don't try this at home, kids, but actually you should try this at home. Just see how it goes for you. Spheres. Okay, spheres we can talk, actually. So with spheres, you do the same thing as I'm doing here. Like well, there's a number of different ways you can do it. But I take, if they're large spheres, I draw a horizon line in the center of it and I make it, so if this was my sphere, right? I would draw a large horizon line in the center and have it be like slightly smiley face shape, so it goes down further at one portion on the sphere than the rest of it. To be the horizon, and then I would just shade and highlight accordingly, if that makes sense. I can maybe try to find an example here in a second. Otherwise, the orc that I painted in that guide has a sphere in the center of his shield that you can go take a look at and see what you think of that. Okay, and then I chewed up most of my mid-tone here. I would have to go back in and put it in step by step. Aaron, sorry, man. I should have said that I'd be willing to go do that later. But yeah, it's all fixable though, and it's not a wrong way to do it. If you do the line on the top, it's going to look more dull and like brushed metal instead of a highly polished metal. But it's like I said, there's not try to try to avoid the line of thinking that there's one like correct way to do a lot of this stuff. As long as you're consistent, you can get through a lot of things. Okay, I'm gonna because there's all that decoration in the way, this is going to be harder. So I'm just going to try to just dab that back in. And then for the most part, I'm going to leave it dark like that. Not great, but good enough that I can start working on the highlight portion, which is what I was more excited to do. Isn't putting the shadow at the top of a cylinder going to make it look very strange if you are doing a top-down light source? Actually, no, because, okay, I need a cylinder. Okay, not sure if you can see this very well, but if I have a cylinder, and if I am light coming down from the sky, okay, I am actually Ian in this point. I am the observer of this light, right? If light is coming down from the sky on a metal object, or on a non-metal, if it's coming down on a non-metal object, it's going to hit here, and then that non-metal object is going to scatter it, and you're going to, some of that scattered light from the top is going to reach your eyes. However, metal doesn't do much scattering. It does very strong reflection. So light that comes down from the top, if it hits dead on the top, would just go boop, it would bounce straight back up. None of it would make it to my eyes. I wouldn't see any of it. Therefore, my eye would interpret it as dark. However, if the light comes down right here and hits a little bit off to an angle and goes and then reflects right into my eye, I'm going to see all the light and I'm going to see it as white. So if you view a highly reflective cylinder, you tend to see a line of light from what is at the right geometry to hit the cylinder and bounce dead into your eyes. Whereas there's not any of the scattering on the top of it that you would get with a non-metallic object. Hopefully that helps there. So, oh yeah, Sally, I'm glad that it worked well for you. Thanks for being part of things there. So what if you have metal next to a mirror? Would that? Yes. Gregory, there you go. Use that beer to visualize there. That's awesome. Okay, I'm gonna grab my yellow real quick. Do a little bit more here. What about the neck guard? What about it? In instances of unclear geometry, I try to break down every piece of metal that I'm painting as either a flat plate or a sphere / cylinder, right? And so if you break it all down into being either a flat plate or a sphere / cylinder, / cylinder, what would you say that neck guard is more akin to? This is a participation activity for the class. What do you guys think? Is that neck guard more like a flat plate or more like a cylinder? Dean saying a cylinder. 42, Aaron. That works, right? Yeah, it's more like a cylinder. So I would probably try to paint it as such, and in that regard, you could potentially do like a bright point of light here and have it shade down dark, kind of like I did on his chest piece. Or you could put something like really light up here, go down to a mid-tone, and then go down to a shadow. It's just kind of how you want to approach it. I don't know that there's a great explanation other than that. Sorry, I wanted to give you a better explanation than that, but hopefully that helped. Cylinder, yes. Cylinder is correct. So I'm getting sloppy with my blends. We've been blending for 4 hours, and sometimes it's good to say I've been blending for 4 hours. I'm not sure that I can blend accurately for very much longer. So I'm getting to that point here. And then I'm going to grab my 50/50 golden and pale saffron. Try to use it to ease out the rest of the transitions here. Unfortunately, we got a mold line running just perfectly down the center here where I need to make some of my transition. But so I'm going to actually try to fight back and get a little bit of my darker color showing on the top again. Well, yeah, something along those lines. Could you add scratches the same way on a metallic sword? Ooh, I have not done a whole ton of metallic swords with scratches in them. I'm not sure. I'd have to defer. That would be something I would ask of somebody like, Michael there, who does a lot more with the true metallic metals, if you want to add the scratches in true metallic. My initial thought would be that you would probably want to use a very bright metallic color and maybe reserve the pure white only for the lightest points of the scratches or something like that. Let's see. On the bracers, would you have still done a horizon line if the peak of the bracers was at an angle and not flat? Yes, because just if you like playing pool or you like, measuring the reflections of things off of other things, if you have a point, it's going to be very, very hard unless that point passes this line. It's going to be extremely hard for that point for the top of that point not to reflect light back into your eyes. So yeah, yeah, measuring angles. I know we all, that's why we all got into miniature painting, right? Is so that we could measure angles. But let's see. Let me splash a little bit of the mid-tone back in here because I feel like I've eaten up too much of that. So there you go. If my blending was a little bit better, and I spent a little bit more time on it, that's kind of what I would shoot for with all of this. Now, since I did the more satiny maybe appearance here, and then I did like the more bright and shiny here, they can look a little bit different compared to each other. If I wanted to match this to this, I probably would have just done a line of white here and then blended down into the mid-tone at the bottom of the bracer and then blended down into like the mid-tone at the top here or something like that. Christina, I usually do a black line, then the brightest silver highlight instead of white. Yeah, okay, thank you. Yes, that makes sense. Okay, guys, I'm running out of blending steam here. I can answer, technical questions, but I'm going to have a hard time demonstrating anything with the brush for the rest here. What more can I show you? Once again, I can go back to that shield and kind of talk through what I would do. Is like, so first choice on a shield, like I said, would have been just to define this as something else rather than as pure metal. But if you want to do it pure metal and you want to do it highly reflective pure metal, you could do something like this. If you want to do it lower reflective pure metal, then I would probably just do, paint it in the mid-tone, and then I would probably just put like a line of white here, and then I would blend out smoothly from that line of white and maybe go to some shadow down here. So Yes, Nicole, if you have a question later, leave it. You can leave it in my artist chat. Yes, please come hang out with me on my artist chat and do everything else like that. John says they're having severe weather at Reaper HQ if anything crashes. Christine asks, would it look okay to put a white line along the bottom of the chest plates? My answer would be to try it and see. I think it probably should look just fine, but I'm not 100% sure. Let's see. All right, sounds good there, Ren. Come bother me about the shield. Yeah, and thank all you guys. Motor City Ray asks, can we see your most favorite piece of non-metallic metal you've done on hand? Actually, truth be told, that dwarf I've been doing is shaping up into being one of my favorite pieces there, just because like I'm really loving like his shoulder plates and everything else like that there. Thank you guys all there. Oh, Michael Campbell, how do I organize my paints? I try to do it by color, but my organization, but that's falling apart because I'm getting too many paints from too many different lines because I'm trying to keep the lines separate. All right. Yes, thank you all very, very much for your time with me here. Come bug me on any of my channels. I don't do any streaming, but I'm going to try to keep putting, getting back to putting more of my stuff on my Facebook channel. So please, check that out if you want there. So you guys have been awesome. This has been an amazing chat. Thank you guys all. So cool. All right. Robert, I'm glad you got in there. Thank you so much there. Yes, thank all you guys very much. So, yep. And even just, yeah, Nicole is like, yep, let me know questions tomorrow, or just, get a hold of me on the Facebook, or even once the convention is over. I love to share what I know. So come visit me at or any way you can get a hold of me, Facebook, Reaper forums, any of that stuff works great. So cool. That'd be great. Kenneth, yeah, show me what you get when you give this a try there. So sweet. Thank you guys all. Oh, can I show off the back of the arm again? Yes, I can, Christian. Let me see. Let's see, we can show last year's, but last year's slightly different colors, slightly thinner white lines, make it probably look a little bit better there. You're welcome. Thank all of you very much, very much. My Facebook is in my just Ian, my Ian Markon page there. So, and yes, Dwarf is SKU number 07011. 07011. That's a great Dwarf. Other than that, I guess I can show you guys, for anybody who's still around, I can show you one more. Someone's asking. This miniature was one of my favorite. So she's 54 millimeters, so I had a lot more real estate to play with. But she's been one of my favorite in terms of both the gold and the red, just because it can kind of shows that you can use the techniques that we talked about here, even with colors other than gold and other than silver, in order to make a really striking effect. And the gold on her reads a little bit more as gold because I had it more brown than the yellow that we were using today there. So I would highly recommend, if you're going for a very strong gold, keep it a little bit more brown. Christina asks, how did I make this armor look, keep it from looking pink? The answer was that I basically painted it red and then painted a very thin sliver of pure white. And so there is a tiny little bit of pink in all of those transitions, but by just instead of trying to evenly mix my colors in, and I just forced it to be a pure white at one point, it helped avoid that pink effect. So Zesty, do I have time to do a super quick recap of my main points? Yes, I can. That's a good question. Very fair question. Where's the miniature? There's the miniature. So to recap, when you're working on non-metallic metal, base it in your mid-tone. Once you've based it in your mid-tone, go through, decide on a surface that is going to be, that you believe is going to be strongly in the light, make it white. Make every facet of the metal that is adjacent to that black, or your liner color or whatever. If you've got paint on a given facet, go down to the other side of that facet and make it the opposite color. So if I made this facet, the top of it white, go down to the bottom of it, make it black. The exceptions being, if you know that doing so would put white next to white or white next to black, then just go to your midtone. Once you've done that, blend, 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 and blend some more. And then finally, help cover any of your blending sins with with weathering, like scratches and stuff like that, if you're allowed to. If you're willing to do a miniature that's has some authentic battle damage instead of just some clean factory fresh paint jobs there. So cool. So how long does it take to paint a figure like that? You're talking my 54 millimeter one? 30, 40 hours maybe. I don't know. That would be my guesstimate there. So I gotta get her back in her case here before I drop her or something like that. Cool. What other questions can I answer for anybody in our last 4 minutes here? Anything? Thank you all so much for being willing to spend your Saturday afternoons painting with me here. That was great. All right. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Kenneth. or Sunday for it. Yeah. Exactly. Just depends on where you're at. But well, all right, everybody. I think we're at a pretty natural stopping point here. I'm going to go ahead and end the Zoom call, but it was a blast with all of you. Thank you again so much. And